Welcome. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is Board of County Commissioners, Seminole County. The time is approximately 9:30 in the morning. The date is January 25th. We're going to have an invocation by Mary Wang from the Central Florida Free Thought Community of Oviedo, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance from Brian Applegate. Can we all stand, please?
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners, and staff for this opportunity to offer an invocation. As leaders, you are not called to be a lone beacon on a hill for others to simply follow. Rather, you are meant to work together for all our benefit, and so that you might help others also shine along with you. This morning, we will hear the Commission's proclamation of Black History Month for Seminole County. With that in mind, let us embody the words of a Central Floridian, author, and freethinker, Zora Neale Hurston, who said, "There is nothing to make you like other human beings so much as doing things for them." This morning, may we recognize and abandon the familiar attitudes and too common practices that do not serve the whole. May we appreciate each and every voice that enters this chamber with hearts and minds open. May we dream and design a bold future for the county where all voices are heard and everyone is uplifted in their time of need. And may we work together with honesty and integrity, guided by rational thought and critical thinking, with a sense of shared responsibility. Thank you.
Please join me in honoring our great nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Applegate. Thank you, Ms. Wang. We'll now go on to our proclamations and presentations. The first proclamation will be presented by Commissioner Lockhart. Commissioner?
All right. Commissioners, I'd like to move the following proclamation recognizing United States Army Captain Julie Hathorn for her outstanding service to the United States and Seminole County. Whereas the brave men and women of our Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, and Space Force demonstrate a resolute spirit and unmatched selflessness, reminding us there are few things more American than giving of ourselves to make a difference in the lives of others. And whereas, throughout our country's history, generations of service members have answered the call to leave their families, their jobs, and put their futures and even their lives on the line to valiantly defend our nation. And whereas, for many service members, the sacrifice has ended in permanent injury or death, yet their spirit remains in the continued preservation of our freedoms and the promise of liberty. And whereas there are more than 30,000 living veterans in Seminole County who served our nation in times of peace and war, by their service they kept America strong. And whereas Captain Julie Hathorn joined the Army twice, initially as a heavy vehicle operator and later as a commissioned officer upon completion of her nursing degree, serving at numerous duty locations across the United States and Afghanistan. She volunteered for deployment in support of Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Freedom Sentinel in Afghanistan with the 911th Forward Surgical Team. She provided surgical services and oversaw the planning, implementation, and evaluation of nursing care in an extremely austere environment. She was later reclassified as an operating room nurse in order to fulfill a critical shortage. And whereas Captain Julie Hathorn has earned numerous decorations and medals, including 2 Army Commendation Medals, an Army Achievement Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Medal, and 2 Afghanistan Campaign Medals. And whereas Captain Julie Hathorn was instrumental in the development and execution of Walking Blood Bank in Herat and Kabul, providing functional blood supply management in a combat zone. Captain Hathorn worked with joint and NATO partners, ensuring that quality health care was provided despite working through language and communication barriers. And whereas Captain Julie Hathorn resides in Seminole County and works at South Seminole Hospital in Longwood as a clinical documentation specialist while focusing on inequities in the healthcare system. She has raised 2 children who have followed in her footsteps. And whereas Captain Julie Hathorn has brought great credit and distinction upon herself, the United States of America, the United States Army, and Seminole County. Now therefore be it proclaimed that we, the Board of County Commissioners of Seminole County, Florida, express our gratitude, admiration, and respect for Captain Julie Hathorn for her outstanding service to the United States Army and residents of Seminole County. Be it further proclaimed that this proclamation is presented to Captain Julie Hathorn along with our sincere congratulations and recognition as Seminole County's Veteran of the Month, adopted this 25th day of January, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion, second discussion. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Commissioner, would you like to present it?
I will.
Thank you, Commissioner Lockhart. Thank you, Captain. And sometimes less is more, so thank you. We'll now move on to the next proclamation presented by Commissioner Herr.
Thank you. It is truly my honor to present this proclamation of the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners proclaiming the month of February 2022 as Black History Month in Seminole County, Florida. Whereas Black History Month, or National African American History Month, was instituted in 1926 as Negro History Week by Dr. Carter G. Woodson of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And whereas President Gerald R. Ford officially recognized Black History Month during the 1976 United States bicentennial celebration as a time of great national significance to honor the accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. And whereas the theme for Black History Month 2022 is Black Health and Wellness, and whereas Black Americans suffer from higher rates of chronic conditions and are less likely to receive preventative care, and whereas studies show that Black patients have better results when they are treated by Black healthcare workers, and whereas this year's theme underscores the importance of diversity in healthcare, and whereas diversity in healthcare has measurable benefits for both healthcare professionals and the communities they serve, and whereas choosing Black Health and Wellness as the theme for 2022 acknowledges the legacy of not only Black scholars and medical practitioners in Western medicine, but also birth workers, doulas, midwives, and herbalists. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners hereby proclaims the month of February 2022 as Black History Month in Seminole County and encourages all residents to join in celebrating the importance of African Americans in our community and history. Adopted this 25th day of January 2022.
Second.
The motion, second discussion. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. Commissioners?
And I do believe we have Janelle Dunn, the CEO of True Health, and our own Connie from the Health Department to come and help us celebrate this.
I'm gonna direct you guys. I'm gonna do mine first, okay? The first one on my count is 3, 2, 1. All right. Then 3, 2, 1. All right. 1, 2, 3.
We just want to say we're very honored. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to serve Seminole County.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel the same way, and I thank you so much for this honor. Miss Amy, as always, it's good to see you.
Oh, thank you. It's good to see you, too.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we move on to the next presentation, a resolution presented by Commissioner Constantine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just as a comment, I don't know if you saw, but today it looks like DeBerry is going to be trying to take 12 million gallons a day out of the Lake Monroe. So this becomes even more important as we continue to deplete our resources. This is a resolution of Seminole County.
Can you wait a minute? Can we fix that noise?
That was not me.
Whoever it is. Okay, now,
Thank you.
Commissioner Constantine.
Resolution of the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners supporting the Lake Jessup Innovative Algae Harvesting Pilot Project, and I will make the motion so moved. Whereas Lake Jessup, located in the heart of Seminole County, continues to be one of the most polluted water bodies in the county, caused by excessive nitrogen and phosphate concentrations. And whereas decades of polluted discharge from wastewater treatment plants, as well as agricultural and urban stormwater runoff from as far away as Orlando, have caused the conditions observed in the lake today, which is a thick layer of pudding-like sediment up to 3 feet deep on the bottom, ongoing algae blooms, and a very low visibility. And whereas the county and the other municipal stakeholders have spent millions of dollars to implement projects and programs over the past 25 years, which have successfully improved the quality of the water that flows into the lake from the watershed. And whereas now that the watershed and the runoff issues have been largely addressed, a multi-pronged approach to target the ongoing in-lake issues is being developed and implemented by the state agencies, which are the St. Johns River Water Management District, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and the Florida Wildlife Commission, in partnership and cooperation with the county and others. And whereas the St. Johns River Water Management District is currently assessing multiple projects to address the in-lake pollution, including the Innovative Algae Harvesting Pilot Project, which is a nutrient reduction via algae removal. And whereas the Algae Harvesting Pilot Project innovative process removes algae and suspended solids, both nutrient sources, from the water column, which is beneficial in managing harmful algae blooms, reducing nitrates, and improving the water clarity. And whereas Seminole County is fully supportive of all the in-lake restoration activities that are being developed for the Lake Jessup, and particularly the St. Johns River Water Management District Innovative Algae Harvesting Project. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Seminole County, Florida, that this resolution be spread upon the official minutes of the clerk of the circuit court in and for the county of Seminole, adopted on the 25th day of January 2022.
Second.
The motion is second. Discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
I do have a discussion point, Mr. Chairman.
That was a mouthful.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
Yes, thank you. I want to let my fellow commissioners that may not know that Senator Broder has pledged to find additional funding for the ability to pledge towards Lake Jessup cleanup and other innovative technologies, and we hope to know something about that in the next several months.
Okay, thank you for the update. Thank you, Commissioner Constantine. Next is proclamation. Do we have anybody to present it to? Yes. Let's present it to them.
Let's go. And we did enjoy the barge, going down onto the barge and looking at that pilot project.
You're going to get the airboat before then, I guess.
Yes, I did. Oh, he did. Oh, I did. Trust me.
First one on my phone. 3, 2, 1.
Classes.
Well, we know that noise is not from
So good morning, Commissioner Delary, other commissioners. Thank you so much. So just a few words. So thank you for taking the time today to acknowledge the important work being conducted in Lake Jessup and around the state by this district and its partners. I'm thrilled to be here today, and the district is thankful for the partnership with Seminole County and DEP, AECOM, FWC. Protecting water quality and restoring Florida's unique natural systems is not only the district's mission, but representative of all our partners and residents who are with us here today. This project has been decades in the making. It was about 20 years ago that the district's governing board designated Lake Jessup as a priority basin for restoration of water quality and fish and wildlife habitats. Recently, we gathered at Lake Jessup to celebrate a great accomplishment. AECOM's algae harvest process already successfully reduced nutrients from Lake Jessup's water. Governor DeSantis' executive order was designed to promote environmental protection by addressing nutrient reduction. This pilot project is a direct result of that order and a great example of what can happen when partners work together to find innovative solutions to extremely complex problems. Again, I applaud all our partners for their vision and commitment to help improve our state's natural systems. This is a great project, and we look forward to gathering more data in the coming months to share with you and the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next proclamation will be presented by Commissioner Zimbauer. Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's with great pleasure that I enter this proclamation of the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners proclaiming February 11, 2022 as Heart of Florida United Way 211 Day in Seminole County, Florida. Whereas the Heart of Florida United Way was founded in 1939 and is Central Florida's largest supporter of local health and human service agencies. And whereas Heart of Florida United Way's mission is to fight for the education, health, and financial stability of every person in Central Florida. And whereas 211 is the federal 3-digit dialing number assigned in the U.S. for health and human services information and referrals since year 2000. And whereas Heart of Florida United Way 211 offers free, confidential, 24/7, 365-day information and referrals for available health, human, and crisis services for Seminole County residents. And whereas Heart of Florida United Way 211 assisted with nearly 500,000 connections in 2021 to the local community. We also have 211 calls, texts, emails, chats, and online database searches And whereas the Heart of Florida United Way 211 is a member of the National 211 Network celebrating National 211 Day and has proven invaluable and critical service to the continued health and well-being of Seminole County residents. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners hereby proclaims February 11, 2022 as Heart of Florida United Way 211 Day, adopted this 25th day, January 2022.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passed. Commissioner, would you like to present it?
Absolutely.
Might as well just stay down there.
I know.
I should just stay down there.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Catherine Ray, and I'm Vice President for 211 Services with Heart of Florida United Way. And with me also is Ray Larson, our Senior Vice President for Heart of Florida United Way Strategic Impact. On behalf of Heart of Florida United Way, we'd like to extend our gratitude and our thanks for this recognition in honor of 211 Day and for your continued support of Heart of Florida United Way and 211 services, and allowing us to work with you to help your communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Presentation for item number 5 was pulled due to it needs a little more attention given to it and brought back to us.
Didn't catch any mice?
Not yet. Item number 6 is the County Investment Advisor. This time we'll hear from staff. Can we tee up the... Tim, would you like to present it? Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Kim?
Okay, and Tim, are you there?
He is.
Okay, well, let's go to headlines driving the market, and I'll begin. So, these are the headlines that are driving the market. Yields are generally up. There are a lot of things in play. As a matter of fact, every day I sort of I think about the headlines that are driving the market. One of the things that I have not included here is the geopolitical risk that's associated with Ukraine. But I think since the last time we met, the case surge has certainly affected the market. It hasn't shut down businesses, but it's affected the economy. It seems to have slowed things down. Fed officials, since the last time we met, have conceded that the employment mandate has been met, so that's off the table. That means that they're focusing on inflation, primarily solely. And inflation pressures continue to build. Right now, on a year-over-year basis, inflation is at a 4-decade high right now. So the market's concerned that the Fed has missed the boat. That puts the Fed in the position where they may need to be more aggressive. They have doubled their taper pace, which means that they could theoretically start raising rates earlier. And market yields have risen significantly over the last month in anticipation that the Fed would potentially be more aggressive. So just looking at this next slide, Tim, unemployment, and you can see with those two highlighted bars that non-farm payrolls have slowed down. The number of jobs that are being re-added to payrolls is slower than anybody would have anticipated. Right now, there are 6.3 million officially unemployed workers that are seeking work. There are 10.5 million job openings, so that disconnect continues to be there. The reason the Fed has been able to step away from the lack of job creation is because the unemployment rate has fallen to 3.9%. That does not include people who are not looking for work, so it's really kind of disingenuous in a sense. We're now back within half a percentage point of a 50-year low. So the Fed is walking away from employment. Tim, next slide. And as I mentioned before, inflation is everything right now. We're at a 4-decade high. Would never expected that. The one thing that I really want to point out here, and this is important, is that these are year-over-year increases. So if we're up 7% year-over-year, the simple fact is if you go back to December of 2020, which you can find earlier on that graph, inflation, the base was so low that we're sort of amplifying the year over year. Now that reverses itself when you fall forward a few months. So, if you believe, which I do, that inflation is going to come back to earth, it's going to come back to earth once you get to the point where, we're May and we're at 5% in May of 2021. So the base will be higher, and that means that inflation will appear to be lower. But for right now, the Fed needs to get past this. They need to appear credible, and it appears as though they'll do that. So the market has anticipated, Tim, if we go to the next slide, the market has anticipated that the Fed is going to have to be more aggressive, at least in the short term, to meet what appears to be runaway inflation, even though as we roll forward into the year, it's going to abate. And I had left this up here on the Treasury notes to show you over the course of the last several meetings how interest rates or market rates have climbed. Without the Fed actually raising rates, yields have climbed. So in particular, like the 12-month, which was at 7 basis points in September, moving to 11 to 25 in December, and now it's at 60. Those are some of our choices. Going over to the Florida QPD savings accounts, those banks have actually been lowering the rates. They've sort of been a savior during the course of the last couple of years, but they don't want the money. They're not accepting new monies. So now we're looking away from the banks, and the balances in the banks has been reduced to a degree. The pools, Florida Prime, because their fee structure is so low, is paying a respectable rate for liquid cash. And a lot of the money that's flowed in terms of tax receipts, has flowed into Florida Prime and will be spent out of there. So what we have done, just kind of to remind you, is we've been keeping a lot of money very, very short in anticipation that rates were going to climb. They have climbed. They've climbed faster than we thought they were going to climb. Tim, going to the next slide. This is some of the monies that, if you look at the upcoming maturities, a lot of the maturities that are coming up now are at nice low yields, so they're going to easily now be replaced at higher yields. That was the plan. I'm not saying the plan has gone entirely as expected, but in general it has. We positioned money to mature so that it can be reinvested at higher points. That Bank United CD, Bank United did not want the money back, so instead of reinvesting that in the bank, we actually reinvested that. I'm sorry, was somebody saying something? Do I need to? Okay, sorry about that. That was reinvested back into a Florida Palm term at 60 instead of going back to the bank at, they had offered 12. Looking at some of the investments that we've done since the last meeting, we had the opportunity to buy some Treasury notes. Didn't go out all that far, so roughly 20 months was the max on that. Also invested in some Florida terms out into 2022 and early 2023. What we're trying to do in general is ladder maturities out and make sure that you've got enough money maturing along the way. So the recommended purchases, because yields have risen, we're sort of filling some gaps. July 2022 in Treasuries, I don't know where it is today. It's extremely volatile market, but we're able to step out of those pools that are earning 15 or 16, step out, earn some additional income into July and August, and then we're stepping out a little bit further again to fill some maturity gaps in July of 2023 and August of 2023. You can see how much more you earn by stepping out, the additional year. It's because the curve is very steep, because they expect that the Fed is going to raise rates fairly aggressively. That's baked into the cake. My expectation is that the next time we meet, which is actually in 28 days, I'll be there. I expect that we will take advantage of the fact that the Fed is continuing to be more aggressive, and will step out and fill more maturity gaps, probably going out a little bit longer. And before I ask for a recommendation or ask for a motion, let me step to the next portfolio snapshot. And I know this is hard to see, but through the end of December, the average maturity was 183 days. The average yield was 38. That was lower than I thought it was going to be. Part of that was because so much cash came in because of this time of the year, and that cash went into low-yielding liquid investments and basically drug the yield down. One thing I really want to point out, and this is important, is that inside of 145 days, there's $518 million that is actually positioned to mature. So we'll have, again, the opportunity to trade some of the really low-yielding investments for some progressively higher-yielding investments. With the recommendations that I'm making, my expectation is that the end of January yield is going to step up from 38 to 43. Again, we've got a lot of maturities coming up in the pipeline. They're going to be progressively invested back into higher-yielding securities. But the Fed's not expected to actually move the overnight rate until March. So, the pool rates and the bank rates will stay low. So stepping back up into the recommendations, again, I'm recommending purchases of $65 million in July of 2022, August 2022, July 23, August 23. Again, these are staggered. They're meeting cash flow expectations. You still are going to have a lot of maturities to address going forward, but we're adding to your Treasury position. These are full faith and credit, so the portfolio itself will wind up being more secure as we roll forward. So what I need is a motion. Unless there's questions, I need a motion to implement the recommendations that I'm making here, and recommend that the clerk implement the recommendations.
Commissioner Herr?
Motion to adopt the recommendations of our financial advisor based on the report submitted today, and to direct the clerk to implement the said board-adopted recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Before we call the question, Mr. Malloy, do you have any comments?
No, this goes in line with our meeting the other day. So.
I just want to make sure.
Thank
We have any written requests to address the board? Yes, sir. We have no written requests. Anyone in the audience want to address the board? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is item number 7, which is a presentation by Horizon Engineering.
Good morning. Glad to be here. My name is Scott Seck with Horizon Engineering Group. Thank you. So we are here to discuss the grade separated crossings at State Road 436 and State Road 434. As you do know, just a quick intro, we did come and present back in January of 2021 the initial findings that we had, which really focused on 2 options for pedestrian overpasses. The request then was, hey, why did we not look more in detail at underpasses? So that's what we came out of, and that's really what we're here today, is to look at the findings of the most recent study, which was looking at underpasses. One of the things I do think is important to note is that we met with all the commissioners, and everyone had different, questions. So when I'm updating it today, I'm going to try to encompass what everyone said to try to be as comprehensive as I can. So one of the things I do want to note before we get into it is that if you look at these 2 intersections, of course, this is only, one snapshot of the overall trail. So the overall trail, for Seminole County Trail, you have 2 other grade separated crossings, which are currently underpasses. So one of the thought processes that we had looking at it is that, if you go and you change these locations to looking at introducing overpasses, is that going to change really the character of the trail overall? Or does it make sense to keep with a consistent grade crossing by using underpasses? So just a thought as we go through it. So I did want to go over the stakeholder feedback. So PPAC, we did meet with them. Their recommendation was to stick with the bridge alternative at 436, which is 1A, and at 434, the bridge alternative number 1. They did recommend that both projects be advanced together because they do see that both of these intersections are an impedance to people using the trail. Seminole County, they basically looked at what PPAC said and said, yep, we'll concur with what PPAC said. Altamont Springs, they said that they're in favor of the job overall. They did say, they don't really like switchbacks where you have to come down and make a hard 90 and come back, because that's a little bit of a safety concern for the users. They also did say, if you're going to go forward really with the overpass ones, we want to make sure that there's a high-end aesthetic. So the high-end aesthetics was not something we included in our cost, so it is something that we would have to look at adding in. And I think that's one thing, too, you need to consider when you're looking at the over versus under. Bridges can be iconic structures, and there's certainly locations where that makes sense. And when you're looking at an underpass, there's the advantage of where there's no aesthetics, because no one sees it. So if you're in an area where you don't need aesthetics and you don't need to make a statement, that's another consideration for why you would go with an underpass. But they just requested that, hey, if you're going to go with anything moving forward, we want to be involved with the aesthetics. They also were concerned about making sure all the property owners in areas were coordinated with. DOT, we met with them. They're basically supportive of the project. So with that, I did want to kind of go over the history of what really Seminole County has done in the past with underpasses. So at 434, that one was built back in 2009 at a cost of $5.5 million. I think I had said it was 4.5 the last time. When you add in all the little design fees, that bumps it up. If you took that number, you projected it forward for today, that would be $9.1 million. The one that was done at Lake Murray Boulevard, in 2012, that was $8.6 million. If you project it forward to today, it would be at $12.7 million. So one of the other things to consider too is if we would have come in here, whoever did the one at Lake Mary, and we said, hey, you got an option for an underpass at today's number at 12.7, or we could build you a bridge at a cheaper cost, what would you go with? So I think that you've already had different options, because the underpasses are historically more money. So you've already set a precedent by saying we're willing to spend the money to build the underpasses in the locations that make sense. The bottom one was one that was looked at originally by actually Altamont Springs. 436, they ultimately decided not to move forward with it, but again, the costs just show that things are definitely going up and definitely have increased from what we've seen in the past. So looking at the cost, I did want to just go over, obviously, all of the alternatives that we're looking at are all feasible. So there's nothing that's not feasible we're going to present today. They do definitely have different cost alternatives. They're basically outlined there for you to understand. Again, I do want to mention with the cost on the bridge alternative, it doesn't include the high-end aesthetics that the Altamont Springs said, hey, we would like to see that if we're going to put that in there. So just keep that in mind. Other thing, too, I'll get into it later, with the bridges, there were questions about maintenance, what is the cost to maintain a bridge versus an underpass. So basically looking at what Seminole County has spent in the past, we do have the bridges where I think this county is spending about $1.5 million to take care of the rust and the paint on the bridge over I-4. So that is something to consider with the underpasses. As of yet, there hasn't been a significant amount of maintenance that has been in there. So no real high-end cost on the underpasses. We can look at the bridges and say, hey, we'll add a coating up front to help prevent the maintenance, but it would change the cycle from 20 years to 40 years at a cost of about $500,000. So looking at the tunnel alternative, so this is at 434, so this is the longer alternative. Some of the advantages, again, the part of it was we don't, like City of Altamont Springs and PPAC said, we don't want switchbacks. We don't want people to come down and have to make a hard right and then come back around or turn around. So that's one that's definitely an advantage to this one. One of the things too that I want to mention, and I brought up, someone was asking about user experience and about how do we get a feel for what this is like. So I did put down here what the grades were, but I wanted to kind of just go over, when you're approaching an underpass, I think the difference between underpass and overpass is you start looking at the thing, you're going to make a decision, hey, am I going to decide to use the facility we just built, or am I just going to go out grade? So the end result is that people are going to make a crossing what they think is the easiest to use. That's just what they're going to do. So the underpass, the good thing about them is that it is more inviting because you get to go down first, right? So it's a shorter grade going down. Another thing to consider is the height difference between an underpass. We're basically going to go 14 feet down in the ground. You do an overpass, you're going to go 18 feet above ground. So the ramps you need for an underpass are shorter because you don't have to go, far enough down. So they're shorter by about 100 feet is the way it comes up. So that's one of the things too, is if you're looking at an underpass, you get to go in, you get a little bit of pickup on your speed, you get to ride at a flat grade, pick up speed, and as you're going to go out, you'll just get to that part, and it'll be about 100 foot less effort to get out of the underpass to do it. Whereas with the bridge, it's the opposite. You're going to do your work up front. I did want to point out under the disadvantages, a couple of them. Obviously, we're going to go underground with underpass, so there's going to be disruptions to the utilities. We can take care of that with our engineering. Drainage side, we'll have to reconstruct that as well. I do want to note the one thing we had highlighted in white down there was the property owners prefer the bridge. So we did get feedback from all of them, and their concerns were really with the safety of the underpasses in the area. So the other ones that we have done, we've added security fencing. We've also, I know the Altamont there's a current one that just got built by DOT that Altamont is maintaining. They added security cameras. The Seminole County staff would go and open the underpass every day and close it at nighttime, so no one uses it at nighttime with the gates we can put on there. So that's definitely something to consider as well. And then on alternative number 6, so this is one where we did look at it. This one, the biggest takeaway is that it adds a switchback in there. It definitely reduces the cost, but again, the stakeholder is saying, hey, we don't want something with a switchback on there. Because again, you have a tendency that people just won't use it. So if you get to the intersection, they may just say, hey, I'm just going to do that grade crossing. So instead of having to make the extra effort for the switchbacks. And I did want to just give you a snapshot of the complexities with the underpasses. So it's kind of hard to see, but there's a network there of all the red drainage systems that we do have to reconstruct. That's just obviously when we're putting the underpass, everything that's there has got to go lower. And this one did require, the longer alternative did require us to add in a pump at the very end of it. And it's not something that we like to do, but it is an engineering solution to make sure that it can work and still function. So then when we go to the bridge alternatives, this is one where, again, this was the one, it avoids the switchbacks. So that's still what the property owners, and I think, well, not property owners, but the Altamont and PPAC recommended. Property owners, again, they did say a bridge. Disadvantage, obviously, when we're going overhead, we're going to hit the Duke Energy transmission lines. We're also, again, with the bridges, a little bit higher maintenance cost. And I do want to, again, just go over on the left-hand side, we'd kind of, we'd basically highlighted, the ramps. And I just want to describe to you, of course, when you're looking at making a choice to go up or over, your initial work effort is going to be higher on the bridge because you're going to have to make a decision. I'm going to go up, and it's going to be, we're looking at 380 feet at a 5% grade. So what that means is every 100 feet, you're going to go up 5 feet. Again, we got to get up 18 and a half feet in the air to make that crossing. So it's definitely more work for the user. And then the other concern too is when you're coming down. So like I know, with young kids and out there, we definitely have to make sure that we design it for everyone to use. So the option when you're coming down, of course, is that we can put in intermediate landings that slow people down, but we're going to be coming down at a 5% grade. And this one of the challenges with this one is on the east end there is the driveway that is the back entrance to Target. So we're going to have about 100 feet area where it's flat before that driveway, but you'll definitely have people that are coming down because they're going to pick up speed and they will have to stop. You're relatively close with that one. So that was one of the things too, like if you look at the underpass option, one of the things that I think is a benefit is you're coming out of it, you're going uphill. So when you're coming out, you're going to be going slower. So anything you have to navigate when you get out of it, you'll be going at a slower speed. It's just inherent in going uphill. So with that, we also looked at bridge alternative 2. And then this one again, I do want to note that there is a potential for an Outback Steakhouse in Lowe's parking lot. We wouldn't affect it with either alternative or any alternative, but just so you know. And then again, this one did have the switchbacks, and also it didn't make the crossings of the two other driveways. And so again, no one really liked this one, but it was an alternative that we did look at. So that's the summary of 434. Before I get into 436, if anybody has any questions specific to 434, I'd be happy to answer them before we move on.
I'd like to do the whole presentation, then
sounds
ask
good.
questions.
All right. So then when we get to 436, same thing. This is just kind of giving you a snapshot of what the costs are. And again, with the bridge alternative, it does not include, again, what Altamont said is we want to see a high-end, structure going in here. We want it to be pleasant and have the aesthetic. So that cost is not involved with that. So this is the underpass option. This is a longer one. And again, so this one was definitely favorable from the perspective, again, no switchbacks. And I do want to point out, like, one thing, when you're coming from the trailhead, you know, you're already coming up at grade because the river's kind of lower, you're coming up. So with this one, it would be nice is you'll be coming at a 2% grade, you'll get to the entrance of the other pass, and you'll come across and it'll be relatively flat. When you get to the west side, then from there, you do have a grade of 7% to get up to Laurel Street, which is a connection. So it's a little bit of a, it is steep, but when you look at the bridge alternative, it's not as steep as a bridge alternative. And again, when you're going uphill like that, when you get to an intersection, at least you're going slow. So if you slowed yourself down, you know, less chance of problems that are going on there. And then same thing is if you're coming from Laurel Street and you're going to go, you know, use the underpass option, you will be going down at 7%, but then you will hit, we have it straight, so it should be easy to navigate. So then you do have a long area to slow your speeds down before you then get to the end and go down to the trailhead. So that's definitely, I think, a good consideration about how people are just going to use it. And again, same thing, so with a tunnel alternative, you know, there is more drainage that we have to reconstruct, and this gives you a quick snapshot of how we can make that work, but it is all feasible. So when we get to the bridge alternative, so this is one, this was the one again that was recommended by PPAC. It avoids the switchbacks. When we did talk to the property owners in this area, you know, their reaction was, we want an underpass. We don't want anything to disrupt our sight line. So someone asked us, hey, can you show some photos? So I got some photos I'll show you as well. But I did want to point out just the operations of again, how this one would work on the bridge side. And it's definitely something that you need to consider because it is a decision. So if you're coming from Laurel Street and you're going to make the right and go down the trail, so you're going to go up just a little bit, which is a nice chunk of grade, then you'll be flat across the road on the bridge, and then you're going to come down, and so the grade we have on there is an 8% grade. So the ADA maximum is 8.33%, so we're under what the requirements are. But it is steep, and so that's one of the things I've been looking at is like, well, someone asked me, well, what can you do to mitigate that? It's like, well, you know, we could take, you know, that ramp, which goes down because we're chasing already a steep grade to get down there, and we could introduce like an intermediate flat area to flatten it out. It would add cost, and then it would actually push, you know, the entrance of that thing kind of further down to almost where the trailhead is. And so that's definitely a consideration. I know we've had some feedback on other, you know, like I would say earlier projects where you have steep grades that are really long, is that there's a tendency for people to, especially younger kids or whatever, to, you know, not lose control, but have a tendency to, they need to have better control over themselves as they're navigating that way down. So that is a consideration. And the same thing is when you're coming up from the trailhead, you're going to come up at 2%, then you're going to now go up at 8% to get up over the road. So you've got a decent amount of work that you got to do to use this alternative. So with that one, then we did also have another alternative, which includes a switchback. And again, this one wasn't really something that anyone liked, so I won't spend too much time on that one. And so this was our just a quick couple of photos of the sight lines of where the bridge would be. So if you're looking at the one for the westbound travel, someone said, hey, well, what about the billboard? And so if you're traveling west, the one on the top left, you know, the bridge is going to be before where the cell tower is, and it's going to be before where those trees are. So there's not really an obstruction to the billboard, and it faces the other direction. So for the eastbound travel lanes, you can actually see on your right, you can barely see it, is that there actually is a billboard there. You don't really see. The bridge would actually be behind it. So that's not really, you know, something that in our opinion is not really something that needs to be considered. And then from there, that's really kind of the meat of it. This is all things that you have seen before. We can click through it. If you have any questions, we can go over it. But these are different thoughts or different designs that we have done or have been done, you know, throughout Central Florida. And then we did have a couple of videos. If you want to watch them, we can certainly do that. If you want to hit play on them, we can do them. But we know everyone has time. If you want to watch it, you can. If not, we can skip forward. So this is actually Kevin, one of our engineers, writing on the overpass that we did for the city of Orlando. So he's already gotten up. So he's already done the hard work to get up. And so now he's cruising back down. And I will say, like this one too, you know, this one actually comes down and it actually does have a hard switchback. So we put up extra signs to do it. But so you can kind of see again, you know, as you're going to go up, you know, it's going to be more work to use it initially. But as you come back down, that's one of the concerns too, is if you have really long ramps, you got to make sure at the end of it, you're going to have a safe landing for people to slow down. So if you go to the next one. Oh, actually, I got it. Yeah, so, yeah, let's see, next slide. So then underpasses that y'all have with the county, just the way that they look. And again, we did do a video on that one. Can you just hit play? So that's what it looks like, as you're going through, you've already been riding for 5 miles, you get to cool off for 30 seconds before you then do the second half of your bike ride. But the only thing good about the underpasses is the ramp getting out. It's just that it's the shorter distance that you have to do. I know I watched a few videos of people doing some other overpasses, and like when they get to the top of that thing, they're already going, and so it's definitely a challenge. But so that's the way it is. And again, this was just a snapshot of what the feedback was for the stakeholders. And the next steps are really, I think from the county side, there is money available for the design. And I think working with MetroPlan, they're looking at getting the funding available for 2025. So I think with that, we're looking for a recommendation from you all as to which alternative you recommend.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Horizon for their hard work. I know that we've asked them to go back and review it. You did that, and I want to thank you for that.
Absolutely.
This time I'll ask the board, Commissioner Herr, then Commissioner Zimmerman.
A few questions here. Do you have an approximate on the high-end aesthetics that Altamont's asking for? And is Altamont participating in the high-end aesthetics?
They didn't make any specific commitments to financial contributions. I will say that when we looked at the one we did for the city of Orlando, the high-end aesthetics, I want to say that the sky's the limit, but I think on that job, we had done one iteration, and then the city asked us to upgrade the lighting and upgrade that, and we had added, I think it was at least $1 million onto it. Most of the lighting is really expensive, but it definitely does make an iconic structure stand out.
And then you mentioned $1.5 million on bridge maintenance, but that was over a period of 20 years.
20 years, yes, 20 years,
Okay.
yeah. And again, we could extend that out by adding about a $500,000 up front to 40 years.
Is that it, Commissioner?
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
Thank you. A similar question to Commissioner Herr. Was there, when you had discussion with the city of Altamont, was there any discussion that they were willing to put revenue towards their enhancement desires?
I think that they say that they already do contribute to the overall fund, but they didn't have a specific saying that they were willing to do, something for this specific item.
Sure.
So,
And then the DOT tunnel that Altamont currently maintains, can you give us a little background why DOT chose to go under instead of over? Do you have any?
I don't know that I have the background on that one. It was again, I just talking in general terms, you have to look at the context of the land out there and just see what makes sense. And I think one of the things I'll say with like that one is it is, if you're literally right at the corner of an intersection, you're trying to make a decision of going, up a set of stairs or a set of ramps or just going at grade or going under, I think that, it's just easier to walk down initially to get across than it is to walk up.
Until you get to the bottom and figure out you got to go back up.
Until you get to the bottom, but again, with underpasses, you don't have to go up quite as much on the exit, which is something that I think, we've kind of, as engineers, it takes us a while to look at what all these percents and numbers mean, but that's kind of, from a user perspective, that's what it means.
Thank you. That's all I have.
I prefer, it's just my opinion, I use the trails a lot. I like the tunnels long-term. Whatever decision we make, we have to think, long-term. And when you mean about long-term, it's not 4 or 5 years, it's 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. What is the best alternative? I will tell you that looking at intersections, people, from what I've heard, they try not to walk over, they'd rather do at grade. And if they're choosing between at grade or a tunnel, they'll do the tunnel, from what I've heard. That's the other reason why I prefer the tunnels. Also looking at the tunnels, this is truly a signature trail because it becomes part of the Cross Florida Trail as well. So whatever we decide, it's not just, a local opportunity, and it's not just a regional opportunity, it's a state opportunity of what we're trying to do. And that's why I think that the tunnels would be the most preferred way to do it. And if you're looking at, cost, and if you want to go cheap, we shouldn't have done the trails at all. Just do at grade totally.
Yep.
Because it's all about the experience. That's why you're doing the trails. That's why you're doing either bridges or tunnels. And that's why, if I had to make a decision today, I really think that we should be doing the tunnels. And then, as you alluded to, I think you did this, that we should be doing the design. And once we do the design, then we can position at Metroplan to get the funding for it.
Correct.
I did speak to Nick Lepp at Metroplan regarding that, and he says, yes, if the county does the design, either for the tunnels or the bridge, they would then position it so that we would get the funding quicker than just waiting for Metroplan to do the funding for the design and the construction. So from my standpoint, I really believe that we should be doing tunnels. Commissioner Lockhart, then Commissioner Constantine.
So one of my questions in our briefing was, how sure are we about this Metroplan money? And so that sounds like we've had some good conversations. Do we have any indication that is it a commitment? Is it an in writing commitment, or is it?
So with Metroplan, it's all about priorities. And the reason why I said it, because priorities do change depending upon what happens in the economy, depending upon what happens with funding. I could tell you that with the members of this board that sits on Metroplan, as well as our staff, we can position it. We can position it very well. But depending upon what happens with the economy, depending on what happens with priorities, there are no guarantees. Even if you have, you're queued up, next year you're getting the funding, depending upon what happens with the state, you could be bumped down a year or two. But I really believe that we can position ourselves with Metroplan to get the proper funding to do the tunnels.
Yeah, these are, obviously, as you know, this is a regionally significant trail.
And that's the reason right there.
And statewide, yeah.
So the other question I had was, can we do one of each? If a tunnel seems more appropriate at one location and a bridge seems more appropriate at the other, is that something that we would consider, or does it have to be?
It's up to the board to decide. You could do both, you could do one of each, you could do none. It's up to the board to decide.
I do think going together makes the most sense.
I agree.
For sure. I didn't know if there was any financial advantage to doing two the same in terms of bidding and contracting out the work.
Yeah, I think
there was
in
a
the
value
end, like
there.
the more you do similar work, you should be more competitive on that type of work. For sure, I tell you, we just talked with DOT about they just had a small job and they literally couldn't get anybody to bid on it. So they're having to re-advertise it. So if you bundle these two together and get a significant dollar value, you'll generate interest from more contractors, bigger contractors, and so then that should drive the competitive bid down.
Commissioner Constantine?
Thank you. Tell me, I have a question and then possibly a comment after. Tell me a little bit about, in our conversations and in this, the retailers wanted one thing and the property owners wanted another.
Yeah.
And then you have Altamont Springs wanting to ensure that the property owners are, okay, explain the difference and.
Yeah, it was, I think that it was at 436, when we reached out and talked to them, it was the first that they had heard that there was this project going on.
When
And
you
so-
say they.
The two property owners really being the Rooms to Go property and also the former Babies R Us, which is now the Eldorado Furniture. So those two property owners hadn't heard about it, so their initial reaction is, we're just getting new businesses up, we don't want anything to block our sightlines. And so we don't, we want an underpass at 436. And then for whatever reason, at 434, it was the exact opposite. They were saying, hey, we have a concern with the underpass one, mostly from, and we prefer a bridge, mostly from the safety perspective, of the underpasses. And again, on the safety side, we can introduce, of course, the gates to make sure that they're locked at nighttime. So you actually had two different feedback at different locations.
So the follow-up question is, you called one group retailers and the other group property owners. It sounds that it was both the retailers.
They were both retailers.
Thank you very much. That's what I wanted to make sure, that wasn't like it was separate. The comment is that, I've seen the overpasses, I've seen the underpasses and the tunnels. I think for these locations, with the amount of traffic, I would prefer the tunnels. However, I want to make sure, I would love to see that we can get that extra funding because they are regionally significant trails. So, I would prefer the tunnels. If the money isn't going to come, I could live with the overpass. But I think at that location, at both of those locations, for the safety purposes as well as aesthetics, I think that the tunnels would be preferred.
Commissioner? And Commissioner?
I have a little bit of a different perspective on it. So I actually appreciate and agree with the staff and PPAC recommendations on this. I don't like the notion that we would commit to somebody opening and closing gates 7 days a week, 2 times a day in perpetuity in order to maintain safety. I personally would get off a bike, walk it up that hill before I would go in a tunnel. So I don't think that we've taken into consideration in all of the presentation where a woman feels safe, where a mother feels safe about a kid going into a tunnel. I would tell my kids, don't go in a tunnel, walk across the road first. So I don't find the tunnels to be more attractive, and they're approximately 50% more expensive. I would suggest that our chances of getting funding may be higher if we don't go for the more expensive alternative that's not been recommended by staff or PPAC. I think that gives us a little bit of a disadvantage. I think the bridge maintenance we've experienced has been minimal, and that's because of good planning. I would recommend that we take the additional step for the additional coating that elongates that maintenance requirement, and I would like to see a mitigation to the grade, to the 8% grade at some form or fashion. Completely flexible on the aesthetics, and with that notion, I will also say that I truly do think that when you go over the trail, when you go over a road for the trail, it brings to the forefront, for those of us that are not on the trails regularly, and I'll own that, that's just not my gig, that it's there and that I should be using it and that it is a community opportunity. When it's undergrade, I don't think you notice it.
You don't.
So I think it's a great branding opportunity.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
Thank you. To reiterate Commissioner Delari's point with MetroPlan, the ranking process, being that these are multimodal, meaning you can walk, you can bike, et cetera, and complete neighborhoods and connecting the neighborhoods is a big push in the ranking now for these dollars. So I think we have a good chance in working with our community partners throughout the region and getting these projects ranked, whether we go over or under, I think we're sitting in a pretty good spot. We've helped them get some funding for projects they've needed, and our time comes, they'll be there to help us. I believe they certainly will be. I look at it from a little different perspective. My preference is on the 434 is a tunnel with a 12-foot cross width. The 436, I also prefer a tunnel. And I considered safety, as Commissioner Herr indicated, with the children and women. I'd like to see some kind of security cameras be in place for those reasons. I also looked at it from the standpoint of people don't jump off of tunnels. We don't have people waving flags off of tunnels. We don't have people having rallies on top of tunnels. That's a side issue to the safety portion, but it's really not when you consider the distraction to the motorist as they're coming down the highway and people are yelling and screaming and throwing flags back and forth, or hanging banners and signs or defacing it, which certainly can happen on a tunnel. So my preference is 434 tunnel at 12-foot cross width and 436 tunnel.
Okay, I think we heard from everyone. I think we need to get direction from the board, either in a motion or consensus. I'd like to have a motion.
I move a motion for a tunnel at 434 with a cross section of 12 foot and a tunnel at 436 with security cameras.
Is there a second?
I'll second based on the fact that, that was with funding coming
Of course.
To alleviate the delta.
Sure. I mean, obviously, we can't do anything.
I'll second it with that
funding.
understanding.
Before we go into discussion with the board, is there anyone in the public that would like to speak on this? Anyone in the audience? Close public input. Commissioner Lockhart?
From the county attorney's perspective, if we put security cameras at any of our facilities, is there an implied sense of, what if the security cameras don't work and a crime is committed and there was an expectation that the camera was working? Or can we explore that camera concept a little bit more?
Well, there's always a chance of liability on either option, but I would say putting in the cameras is more of a planning function, and I think, from a sovereign immunity point, we would be protected.
And would those cameras be monitored real-time like our traffic cameras in engineering? Are the cameras to go back and review after the crime has occurred, or is the camera to...
I don't know.
Or is the camera to watch real-time so we can see what's happening, like we do
I
at our
think that would be,
intersections?
a direction that you would kind of give us, but they could be monitored live. So the one that was just built under 436, that right by I-4, my understanding is that that's what Altamont is doing. They've worked with their police department, and that those are live cameras that are being monitored. And so it's really a deterrent. We would put up signs saying these are monitored, and with the thought that they would help prevent any criminal activity.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
And if I could add to what Commissioner Lockhart just said, since Altamont Springs is also asking for these tunnels, and they're already doing it at one location in the city limits, I think that it would be a reasonable request that they do it in real time on those two tunnels also,
Sure.
if we put cameras in with their police department.
I'm okay with that.
Well, we don't know if they are, but...
No. I mean, we would assume.
But we can put a condition on it.
If they were okay with DOT build the tunnel and they
Right.
monitor it.
Why would
hope
they
would
not? Yes.
Why would they?
Reciprocate with us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Lockhart?
Would there be an option to break the motion apart and take up the two intersections separately, or is the motioner just, they have to be the same?
Well, that's
I mean, I guess, again, my preference is, and that's what my motion was. With that said, I want to be clear to my fellow commissioners, if at some juncture as this moves along, we discover some reason, whether it's financial, whether it's the ability of the footprint, that we can't do a tunnel or no longer makes sense to do a tunnel, then I'm absolutely happy to have a discussion of, hey, that was a great idea, we can't do it, let's do something different.
And, Mr. Chairman, that's why I requested that in my second.
Sure.
Commissioner Lockhart?
Another follow-up then. Walk me through, once this board gives you direction today, what process do you then start to undertake, and how far down the
Commissioner
road
Lockhart,
of
it wouldn't be him, it would be staff.
whoever, someone?
I understand.
Sorry. You're the one standing there, so I'm directing
I
the
just wanna be
question at
clear.
you.
Yeah, so, obviously, the Seminole County staff would then, if it is going to be DOT lab funding, make sure that is secured, then advertise the project, select the consultant, we'll try to submit on it and pursue it. And then once that gets started, you could just say, hey, we want you guys to come back when you get to like a 15% design phase and say, give us an update, because we want to see where you are and what you know. So we'll give, more data than what we have, and we'll do a deeper dive. We'll do more coordination with the property owners and stakeholders, have those meetings with Altamont about, whether the security cameras can be installed, and then probably more meetings with DOT. So probably get a bigger meeting with the stakeholders, and then just dive more into the details about, really the final design, part of it. I mean, there's always, we look at it at one level. Once we get more data, we can look at it in an even greater detail.
So the second was contingent on funding for Metro Plan. And so I'm wondering, that's why I'm asking for a little bit of a timeline,
Okay.
is if we're giving direction to move in a path that is contingent on funding, at what point do we find out about the funding, and how far along in the planning process are we before we go, oops, wait a minute, didn't get the funding, and then we've already invested in the design, in some of,
Yeah, that's
portion of the
good- that's a good
design?
question.
That's what I'm asking for someone to
If Mr.
lay out for me.
John Dredge, can you come to the podium, please? Introduce yourself.
John Dredge, Public Works Director, County Engineer. What we have, those projects, two of them, we have it on the Metro Plan list. They are scheduled for fiscal year 25, 26. Last was they are today. It is for on that Metro Plan list. Whatever direction the board give us, we have is lab funding, federal funding. What we have to do, we have to solicit and select consulting. Is that it take 6 to 8 months to do that. We have to coordinate with DOT about the scope of work because it's lab. We want to make sure they agree with the scope of work, they are on board of it, so we can meet the criteria. So once the fund is available, we can do it. And the design, we're talking about between 12 months to 18 months for the design. That's what we're looking for. And this year budget, we have $1 million allocated for the design. That's what we have currently. So that will give us advantage to move forward. So will give us advantage for the.
Thank you, John. Commissioner Zimbauer?
Thank you.
Does that answer you?
My question is, as you move forward with the design, at what juncture, 30%, 50%, are you able to tell this board that it is going to be feasible, there's no hiccups, there's no roadblocks going on? I understand what we've already done, and we believe there are none, but we haven't got the design portion yet. At what juncture are we going to be able to understand it can happen no matter what? Is that?
I would assume 30%, but he's a designer. He can.
And that's what I thought, but I just want to
I
make
would have
sure.
probably said somewhere between 30s and 60s, so at the 45% mark, there should be no doubt that we're going to go forward. It should be at 30s, but I'm just going to hedge myself a little bit, so.
Well, then I will amend my motion to report back to us at 50%.
Okay.
I'm okay
Seconder.
with that.
Thank
And
you, John.
then we should know, are these viable options or not? And do we need to shift gears and do something different? I think that's what I'm hearing. Is that a fair analogy?
Yeah, they do have a lot of data.
Understood.
They do
No,
have a lot of
I've
data.
looked
They
through.
should be able to, in that stage, they should be able to tell you.
Understood.
Any other
What
discussion
they
before
wish.
I call Commissioner Herr?
I just would love to understand better. You have very interested parties and very educated parties that made a recommendation, yet there seems to be alignment against the recommendation, and I simply don't understand it, just because we like tunnels better at a 50% increased cost. I just can't reconcile it in my head.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to speculate. I simply, in talking with some of them, I think one of the reasons that both the staff and the PPAC, the Parks and Recreation Committee, recommended 1A was because of the cost. And therefore, that was why I wanted it in the second. I think that if it was not about the 50%, as you say, cost increase, I think they would have, been more amenable to a tunnel, because that's what they have always preferred, as I recall, every time they come back here with things when we're going around the trails. However, because that wasn't at the point that they were making a decision, the ability to have the MPO dollars was not on the table. Therefore, they felt, that the other one was more acceptable. Now, that was the understanding I received from the discussion that I had.
Yeah, I would say for sure the cost was a consideration with the thought process. I don't want to speak for them, but I do know that the cost.
And that's why my second was, and it was accepted by the motioner, that, that this is subject to the MPO dollars.
And I think Mr. Durr walked up, who may have something to say.
Before we get to Rick Durr, Zimbauer, and then we'll go to Rick Durr.
Yes, I went back and looked at the tapes from the previous presentation on this exact topic and listened to what the PPAC representative had to say. And their concern was financial, and the dollars involved, number one. Their second concern was, and as I understand it, the consultant has looked at that concern, which was on the 434 tunnel, was the distance in which to connect with their bicycles. and coming into that trail area. And that has been addressed, correct, or taken into consideration since that?
Yeah, I mean, with the longer, I think either of the bridge or underpass option for 434, the big thing there is like you don't want really long, secluded areas, whether you're high or low. So we'll add in additional stairs so that people can get up or down from either one of them to make sure that if you go halfway and you think there's not something you want to address going down there, you can either go back or hopefully take the immediate stairs to get out and go from there. So that's probably the biggest thing, from a crime prevention, working that into our design is to give people access and options for, getting out of an area. I did look at, there was one really long bridge that was built out in California, and they actually had people that were getting mugged at the top of the bridge in broad daylight, and so they were coming back and adding security cameras to that one to make sure it is. But with the ones that we've done, it's a concern with access and crime prevention. So we'll add in stair options, at as many points as we can, not over, but enough to make that it makes sense so that people can make a decision to go, you know what, I don't like what I see on another part of it. I'm going to just go right green.
Thank you. Thank you. Rick Durr?
Good morning. For the record, Rick Durr, Leisure Services Director. I'd say we saw this pretty much the same presentation you saw, and when you've got a group of both staff and volunteers or residents, and you've got to make a selection between one that costs twice as much as the other one, the emphasis is in trying to get a project done. So everyone starts to gravitate, I'll even say it for staff standpoint, we'd love to be able to see a project done that addresses the ability to cross safely and to continue that experience through on the trail system. You just kind of gulp real hard when it's twice as much, trying to put that into your recommendation as well.
Thank you.
Any discussion for the board before I call the question?
Can I just ask for another follow-up with Mr.
Absolutely.
Durr? I'm sorry. This will teach you to get out of that seat on the back row.
I thought I hit the eject button here.
I guess this is kind of dangerous to ask you this because I'm asking you to speak for other people who aren't here, but you were present for all of the conversations, so you might have a finger on the pulse. If price was not an option, and if just the experience and was on the table, which one do you think the group would have gravitated toward? If they were told, don't think about price at all, just what would you prefer?
I think there's a lot of validity in saying that the tunnels are a little bit easier to use in the overall scheme of things. We've got a number of bridges already, and we have issues with folks don't want to take the switchbacks on some of the tunnel bridges that we have. And the idea that if you're approaching 436, for example, at that location coming down from the trailhead, your crossing almost disappears, and you come out on the other side and you've got no idea that you just went through this very congested area. I think we'll probably have a little bit more favorability on the tunnels portion of things. It's literally, there was a comment made about it, you get your 30 seconds of being able to get in the shade. There's something to be said for that as well, especially at some of our tunnel crossings that we have. It's a nice place to actually go down there, and you're through pretty quickly. So that's just my estimation.
And one last follow-up, I'm so sorry, but I think we touched on this a little bit in our briefing a couple weeks ago. The folks who were sitting around the table giving input, did the names and players change at any point in time during those discussions that might have driven the conversation one way or another? Did you?
We've had, there's, over the last year, we've had some people come off the PPAC, other people come on. We even had a change in project managers, and just for staff standpoint as well. So, yeah, there was a change in that direction as we went. But I can say from the top of the list, everyone's priority has been, we just need to pick a solution that has a chance of getting done, because that's really the number one objective here.
Great, thank you, I appreciate it.
Seeing no more discussion, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you. Before we move on, I have a couple little, thank you very much, Horizon. A couple little treats. First off, I want to recognize Commissioner Lockhart was recently honored as the 2022 Association of Florida Colleges Trustee of the Year for the Florida college system for her services at Seminole State College. Governor Rick Scott appointed the commissioner to serve on the Seminole State College Board of Trustees in 2014 and again in 2018. She was elected as the vice chair and the Board of Trustees for the one-year term in 2019. Commissioner Lockhart truly has a passion about ensuring students have balanced education experience, includes real-world internship, and work programs, and has been trying to ensure students graduate ready for the workforce and advancing Seminole State College to a new level of success. And I wanted to publicly not only acknowledge her, but thank her for her hard work. Thank you.
Congratulations.
There's another award that we have, and it's regarding the clerk of the court, and I want to introduce our clerk and comptroller, Mr. Grant Malloy.
Well, thank you, Chairman, and I see we have Jenny Spencer, our comptroller director. She doesn't know I'm doing that, but if she could come down, I want to recognize her, kind of surprise her this Tuesday morning. But as you know, the comptroller office works very closely with the county budget department, and I'm proud to say that Jenny and her team did receive the notice of the day that we did get the annual award for the comprehensive annual financial report, which I think they changed the acronym recently, so it's something different. But I really appreciate your staff working with this. It's on our website, seminolclerk.org. It shows all. I'll let Ms. Spencer give a little overview of what it is and the project, and we sure appreciate that recognition. I will point out this is, I think, the 39th year, am I correct? 40th, okay, 40th year in receiving this award, as well as we do the Citizen Financial Report, which is available. We hand that out at jury duty. It's very popular. You know, people want to look at all these financial statements. Well, we make it available, I'll say that. But that's on our website, too, seminolclerk.org. And from all the clerk's offices and comptroller's offices in the state of Florida, we rank in the top 5 with the number of awards we've gotten. So I'll let Jenny just say a couple words and appreciate the recognition.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Clerk Malloy. So the annual comprehensive financial report is exactly what it's called. It's very comprehensive. It includes the Board of County Commissioners and all 5 constitutional officers. In addition, it includes the Port Authority and the Law Library. It's very comprehensive. It encompasses all the accounting standards, governmental accounting standards that governmental entities follow. And it's audited by an independent CPA firm who not only audit the financial health of the county, but also compliance with grants. So all the grants the sheriff receives, as well as the county receives, and the clerk of court also receive a grant from the Department of Revenue. They audit that, and they opine on the financial statements, and they opine on compliance. So when the county goes out to reaffirm the bond rating, that's one of the things that the underwriters look for. That helps them to assess the financial viability of the county, not only from a financial standpoint, but also from a compliance standpoint. So it is the highest award that's given to governmental entities, and it says a lot about you as a governing body of the importance you place on being transparent and having a comprehensive report completed. Because not all governments get that certificate. It's optional.
So
thank you, Jenny.
Appreciate
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Jenny.
And I appreciate the teamwork. Things are much easier when different governments and departments and agencies work together. So your budget department's been great, and sure appreciate your partnership.
Thank you, Mr. Malloy. I also want to acknowledge the Hagerty High School sidewalk project. I have a number of students here today from the Hagerty High School National Honor Arts Society. They recently had a sidewalk project outside of Hagerty High School in Oviedo, and they featured the penny sales tax projects. And I was amazed on their artistic ability. I mean, I truly can't draw, so it's phenomenal what you did that day. And I asked them to be here today, and one of the things they did, you can see a photo on there, is that they actually did some sidewalk art right outside in front of our building by the Porte Cochere. talking about Seminole County a little bit. They showed the district map. They actually showed the penny right there, and they also showed Bear Awareness. There was actually a logo that they actually did for that. With us today, the Honor Society is led by their teacher, Omar Atto, I think that's his name. Please stand. And then we have the President of Society, Rose. Can you stand, Rose? As well as your other classmates. Please stand.
Hi.
I'd like to ask the teacher to come forward if there's anything you'd like to just talk about the students and about the program. After we hear from the teacher, I would like to take a 5-minute recess. We can actually look at their art at the Porte Cochere. Sir?
Hello. I'm sorry. Hello. My name is Omar Otero. I do run National Arts Honor Society and teach 2D and 3D art at Haggerty High School. These girls blow my mind. I've been running National Arts Honor Society for 3 years, and this is the first year we've really gotten going for obvious reasons. We haven't been able to do as much as been possible. I want you guys to take a look at it. They've done a great job. They always impress me. I don't know what I'd do without these girls. I don't know how I'd run National Arts Honor Society without Rose, and she's a senior, so I'm going to have to. So I guess we'll find out next year. Thank you very much.
Somebody will step up to the plate.
So with that, I'd like to take a 5 to 10 minute recess. We can actually look at their art.
Mr. Chairman, can we get a picture with the students?
Absolutely.
And the teacher?
Yeah, before we leave.
Ladies, would you come to the front? I also encourage people in the audience to go to the Porte Cochere. It is truly amazing. Take a 5-minute recess, and we'll go outside and take a look at their art. We'll reconvene the Board of County Commissioners meeting, and again, I want to thank not just the board, but the public here for allowing the students of Haggerty High School to show us their artwork and indulging in us. Okay, we're going to move on to the public participation. Pursuant to Florida law, the public has the right to be heard on all propositions except for the Board of County Commissioners acting administrative or emergency matters or conducting a meeting exempt from Section 286.011 Florida statute. Public comments time on propositions would be 3 minutes for individuals and 6 minutes for groups. The right to be heard during quasi-judicial hearings is governed by Florida law. The public will be provided an opportunity to be heard on non-agenda items at the end of the meeting. Proper decorum will be observed at all times. So if you do have a cell phone, electronic device, please put it on silent or turn it off. This time we move to the consent agenda. I'd like to ask the county manager, any items will be ready?
No changes, sir.
No changes on items 8 through 26 for the regular agenda. I'd like to ask the board, is there any items you'd like to pull? No? Is there a motion? Commissioner Zimbauer.
Move a motion to approve items 8 through 26.
Second.
And item 27, the attorney's report and the clerk's report, number 28.
You want to do it all in one motion?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, is the seconder agree?
Yes.
Okay. This time we'll hear from the public. Do we have a written request for any items?
Nothing for the consent agenda, sir.
Okay, is there anyone in the public who'd like to be heard? Close public comments. We have a motion on the floor. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The motion passes. Give me a minute to turn the page. And so now you did the clerk's correct. So now we're on a regular agenda item, which is item number 29, which is the Wekiva Spring Fall Fest 2022 special event permit. If we could do one presentation, is there any objection to that, Mr. Applegate?
No, Mr. Chairman. If you want to combine all three, you can.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that.
Any objections to that? Okay.
Thank you. As long as there can be motions separately for each one.
We can break them out in motion separately. The public will be heard either on each item or total.
Can we hear from the public on all of them?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Great.
So I'll do all three, and then the public will come up.
That's correct.
Thank you. Mary Robinson.
And so will the applicant.
I'm sorry.
And so will the applicant be
Yes,
able to
sir.
speak.
Item 29 on your agenda is a request for a special event permit for the Wekiva Island Fall Fest. It's located at 1014 Miami Springs Drive. This event is scheduled for 2 Saturdays, October 29th and Saturday, November 12th. Both functions are between the hours of 8 a.m. and 11 p.m. for a total of 2 days. The applicant is requesting 500 guests for this special event. Staff is recommending $395 based on the approvals that were given the prior year by this board. The event includes a Halloween costume contest and a big green egg cooking demonstration. The amplified sound will consist of a bullhorn or a microphone to be used during the costume contest and the big green egg demonstration to announce winners and prizes. The agenda, the permit in your agenda includes findings and conditions of approval. Staff is recommending the board approve the special event permit as recommended by staff for the Wekiva Island Fall Fest. The next one is the Wekiva Island Paint Out.
Can you, wait a minute,
Something's going wrong, sorry.
That's like a cash register.
I know, it did, didn't it? I was trying to get to the computer.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next is item 30, the Wekiva Island Paint Out in Spring Fling 2022, again located at 1014 Miami Springs Drive. The applicant requested the special event be scheduled for 28 days and extended hours. Those dates and times are Sunday, February 27th through Saturday, March 26, 2022. The applicant is also requesting extended hours from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. for all days during the special event, and 500 guests daily in lieu of the $395 approved in the DO. Staff is recommending alternate hours of operation and attendance based on the board approval of the 2021 special event for the paint out. The hours of operation recommended are Sunday through Thursdays, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., Fridays and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., and
we're recommending the attendance be limited to 395 guests daily. Performance at the event will include live bands playing indoors and outdoors, various artists, painting outside, and the artwork will be exhibited in the art gallery. Amplified sound is planned for the art auction on March 2nd, which will be under the solar array, and there would be a microphone used. This is also an exception to the DO, as the DO specifically states that there is no amplified sound permitted under the solar array. On March 5th, there will be a band that will perform in the back deck of the classroom building. Again, the special event in your agenda includes the findings and conditions of approval. Staff is recommending that the Board of County Commissioners approve the special event as recommended by staff for the Wekiva Island Paint Out and Spring Fling 2022. Lastly and finally, Wekiva Island, item 31, Winter Wonderland, again located at 1014 Miami Springs Drive. This event is scheduled for Sunday, December 3rd through Sunday, January 1st, 2023. The special event requests a variety of entertainment, which is listed in the comparison table, which I attached for each event in your agenda. Excuse me. Again, the applicant has requested extended hours from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. for all days during the event. The applicant has also requested operating hours be extended to 2 a.m. on Sunday, January 1st. That would be New Year's Day. The applicant again is requesting 500 guests daily and 750 guests for the boat parade that is to be held on December 3rd. Staff is recommending the alternate hours of operation and attendance based again on the board's approval of the previous special event in 2021. The hours of operation recommended are Sunday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., Fridays and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., with the one exception to permit operating hours to extend to 12:30 a.m. on Sunday, January 1st, 2023. We're recommending the attendance be limited to 395 guests at any given time. Again, the agenda includes, the permit includes findings and conditions of approval. Staff is recommending the Board of County Commissioners approve the special event permit as recommended by staff for the Wekiva Island Winter Wonderland event, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. This time we hear from the applicant. Is the applicant present, like to discuss any of these?
Mary Sue Weinog, 3453 Peace Valley Way, Longwood, Florida. I'm requesting what I proposed.
Okay. Okay, so you don't want to deviate to staff's recommendations?
No, I don't think it's unreasonable at all.
Okay. All right. Any other comments?
Wait a minute, what was the question again, please?
I said, I asked her for a presentation. She says they're asking for what they're asking for, and I said, you're not looking to deviate to staff's recommendations. That's what I asked you, correct?
Yes.
And she said, no, they want to hold tight on what I believe their present request was.
Okay, just clarification.
I mean, it's a
Thank you.
special event permit. It's not 365 days of what I'm asking for.
Okay.
It's 60.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll hear from the public.
First, we have Michael and Candace Niznik. Neisnick. I apologize.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Just give us your name and address for the record, then your time will start.
My name is Mike Neisnick. My wife Candy is also going to speak. First of all, I want to thank the commissioners for providing...
Can you give us your address, please?
822 Miami Springs Drive, Longwood, Florida.
Thank you.
I want to thank the county commissioners for providing a safe and fun place to raise our four sons, who went on to get bachelor degrees, master's degrees, served in the military and Marines and the Navy, and have become Seminole County citizens. and brought us wonderful 6 grandchildren. We've lived in Seminole County for 35 years, 20 of which we built a house on Miami Springs Drive when it was still called Wekiva Marina. The island came and there was some changes made. Some were improvements, some were not. And there was a development order and a change in zoning. My understanding was it was originally agricultural, then it was changed to recreational. It was approved for the current limits on the number of hours, the number of people that can attend, and the number of special events. Every 6 months or a year, not necessarily all the time, but we get these requests for additional people, additional time, additional hours. If the issue is really one of revenue, why not just raise the prices? It will supply and demand. If the issue is it's not fun unless there's another 500 people instead of 395, I don't understand that. So our recommendation, or at least our request, is that they be held to the original development order and the last special event schedule that was granted the last time.
Thank you.
Did you put up my, yes, I was hoping we could put this on.
So you're going to speak, so can we start the time again, and you'll have 3 minutes? Please give us your name and address for the
Yes,
record.
I'm Candace Neisnick. I live at 822 Miami Springs Drive.
Okay.
I wanted to show this. I know it's probably difficult for you to read. Could you just move that down a little bit, the heading on it, to show that this was a petition that the neighborhood and the community came up with in the year 2019, again, dealing with these same issues that we're talking about right now. My point is that we were just here 6 months ago, June 22nd, and we were talking about a lot of these same expansion issues, and it seems as if every 6 months we revisit all the same topics. And along the bottom, I know it's very difficult for you to read this, but back in 2019, the special events were then being asked to extend up to 30 days. And with the present requests, they're dropping it to 28 days or 29, subtracting merely 1 or 2 days for the special events. And I'm looking at the fact that this is the petition that was from 2019. Here we are discussing the same thing, wishing maybe that we could make some decisions. I wanted to mention, lastly, that we're not here to complain, although it may seem as if that's what we're doing. We're here because we care. We're here because we think that this is a beautiful river, a beautiful place to enjoy in our county. And we don't want it to be exploding to the point where it no longer is that. So that's the last point that I wanted to make, is that we're here because we care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jeff Stamer.
Can we cede our leftover time to?
Nope. No, sorry.
Thanks.
Everybody's given 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Everybody always wants more time, don't they? Whether it's a special event or to speak.
Chairman DeLaurie, I've signed up to speak for the next 3, and I'm a representative of a community. Rather than spend 3 times 6 minutes each time, if it's all right with you, I can do all 3 one time in 7 minutes or less and save you all a little time. It sounds like a good deal to me.
Let's try to get it in 6, and we're good.
We'll give it a shot. My name is Jeff Stamer. I live at 3669 Watercrest Drive, Longwood. It's in Sweetwater Springs neighborhood. We raised a family there, built our place about 27 years ago, and I'm currently the HOA president. Prior to 2019, you saw and heard from us on a regular basis, and a very unpleasant basis, because we were complaining about the special events down at the island. And as you know, those issues have been greatly dissipated in the past 3 years, and there's one reason. They've had no more than 400 people on their property in special events since then. I think twice they were allowed to have 500. They canceled one of those, and they elected, after Commissioner Constantine asked them to go down to 395. So the last 3 years, it's been at 400, and you haven't heard the complaints, and the police haven't come out nearly as much. It's really addressed the issue. And I'm only here today because now they want to turn back the clock. The 3 events in front of you, they're asking for 500, a 25% increase. which will simply put us right back to where we were before 2019, with the exact same issues for the exact same reason. And we don't want to see all that hard-fought effort that we made go to waste. We agree with their staff. $395 is the maximum amount they should be allowed to have. And we have a number of reasons. First, there's a legal reason, and there's a pragmatic reason. From a legal standpoint, and I'm not a lawyer, but the 1988 Wekiwa River Protection Act, which Commissioner Constantine was instrumental in having passed, stipulated that businesses along the river could no longer expand beyond what was there in 1988. In 2018, Wekiwa Island had a new development order request. Your staff, county staff, presented to you their findings about the occupancy, and they said 395 is the right number going forward. And their rationale was they did a study, and they looked back at that piece of property in 1988 and said, how many customers is that handling in 1988? They said that number was 395, and they said that's the number they should have going forward. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I read those minute notes from October of 2018, and it looks really straightforward. But as a 27-year landowner there, from a pragmatic standpoint, I can tell you they can't handle more than 400 without it creating an undue burden on those of us who live nearby. And that's been documented ad nauseum through police reports and our complaints here in front of you all. Two major issues come up, and it's traffic and it's noise. Traffic, I'll give you one example. 2018, they had a boat fest, same thing they're asking for today. 750 customers, same thing they're asking for today. And what happened that night when they had that boat fest, I mean, the island sits on Wekiwa Springs Road, quarter-mile, dead ends, two-lane road. We're about halfway down on the right, our neighborhood. That night, they didn't get their 750 customers because the road stopped up. From one end to the other, quarter-mile didn't move. Folks just couldn't get down there. And for us, we couldn't get in or out of our neighborhood that evening. And they're proposing the same thing tonight. Noise is, of course, the other thing that you hear about the most. Boy, noise. Well, here's the thing. You know, they're on the river. We're on the river. We have this incredible spring that actually runs out of our neighborhood, through the middle of the neighborhood, and out into the Wekiwa, right next to the island. It's wonderful. But it's also a conduit for noise, which flows uninterrupted right back into our neighborhood. Even on a regular weekend at 400, it can get noisy. You add amplified sound, and you add more than 400 people, and it becomes absolutely intolerable. So that's occupancy. As far as their hours of operation, they want to be open later on school nights. Well, for folks who say they want to be good neighbors, you don't go to your neighbor and say, well, we'd like to make another couple dollars, so we'd like to inconvenience your children going to bed on a school night. That just seems ridiculous to us. Their bar is 700 feet away from the backyard of some of our residents who have school-aged children, and we don't think they should be asked to endure that. Finally, we have the same concern about the special event process as far as it gives Wekiwa Island a complete buy on the Seminole County noise ordinances. And I know that's not your intention. We talked about this last June when they were presenting the Gallery Zero and the July 4th event. And we explained to you, we've had deputies come out during their special events, stand in their yard and say, yeah, that's insane. But they have a special event. They're granted an exception on how late they can play their music. And as such, they're given an exception to all aspects of the Seminole County noise ordinance. I said, you mean they can play it as loud as they want? And he said, unfortunately, that's true. I can ask them nicely to turn it down, but they don't have to. And we have asked nicely, and they haven't turned it down. So to recap, we have three asks. One, please stick with the staff's recommendation, your own county staff, at $395 being the maximum. Two, let's not let them stay open any later on school nights for the benefit of our children. And three, let's include some type of language into the special event language that would allow the Seminole County Sheriff's Department to go in there and make them turn the music down if they've got it turned up to ear-shattering levels. I hope you agree that those are not three huge asks and they're not unreasonable. And I apologize if I talk fast, and 64 years old, I still get nervous talking in front of people, and I do apologize. But this is a very emotional issue for those of us who live nearby. I appreciate your time and your attention.
Thank you. Janie's next.
We have Jill Julian.
Nice try. Juliana.
Juliana, I apologize.
That's okay. It's butchered all the time. Now, I signed up for 2 speaking, so does that give me extra time?
We're trying to do everything within 3 minutes. so if
I
you-
understand. I have a friend in the neighborhood that was unable to make it because of COVID, and she has asked me to relay her information, and I'm still within my time limit.
Okay, just let's...
Okay. All right, thank you all for listening to us. We're back again at the same place we are a couple times a year.
Can you give your address?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm at 1044 Bearded Oaks Terrace, and that's Longwood. So I've lived in Seminole County, that area, for 40 years, so I've seen a lot of things come and go. We used to take our kids down to the restaurant that was there before it burned down, so we're familiar with Wekiva Island. This isn't about what they're trying to do environmentally. This isn't about what they're trying to do with Toys for Tots. It's not about that. Let me just give you some numbers. So if we have 500 people for 60 consecutive days, that's 30,000 people. 30,000 people. If we cut that down and just do the 500 on the weekends, as we would be happier with, that takes it down to 5,000 people. So that's a huge change. The other thing I want to talk about real quickly is this road right here. That's a 2-lane road. It dead ends into Wekiva Island. There's no place to turn around. There's not a pad. It's a dirt ditch. So there's constantly the signs out, oh, I'm going to go see if I can get in anyway. So there's this constant travel of up and down Miami Springs Road. It's a 2-lane road. It's not a commercial road. It's a residential road. So as Jeff has said, we are constantly getting hit with traffic, mostly in the summer, but it's gotten better. We have speed bumps now. There's a speed limit sign as well that really helps. In addition to their request, Orange County, Christina Moore has helped Orange County get an extended entrance into the Wekiva State Park. So the only reason that impacts Wekiva Island is because, and it impacts us as well, first of all, you can't get up and down the end of Wekiva Springs Road as it turns the corner. So that's both directions. So you put all that traffic there, and then we have traffic coming up and down here. It's a nightmare to go to the grocery store on the weekends. You have to time it, you have to plan it. So I guess bottom line, what I'm asking is that we stick to the 395. We don't go 500, we don't go 750. It's way more than we can handle or we want to tolerate. I'd like to just really quickly go through Barbara's information, and basically it boils down again to the WRPA. Adequate provision we made for the abatement of air and water pollution, excessive unnecessary noise, and the conservation and protection of national resources. She's in Friends of the Wekiva. I'm sorry. Certain forms of recreation, such as the use of jet skis and motorboats, may be incompatible with the protection and the habitat of the wildlife. Even non-motorized boats can have substantial effects on wildlife habitat if the amount of human use is excessive or the timing or location of the use is inappropriate. Given the heavy recreational use of the Wekiva River system, these types of adverse impacts on wildlife and wildlife habitat already exist in some areas. Litter and discarded monofilament fishing line in the river tangle in the tree canopy and also propose a threat to wildlife. So.
Thank you.
Our last speaker is Douglas Gagnon.
Good morning. My name is Doug Gagnon. I'm at 972 Bearded Oaks Terrace in Longwood, which is the Sweetwater Springs subdivision. I've lived there since 1980. Well, 1981 I moved in, actually. I'm going to follow up since she kind of ran out of time. There's a notion that the original zoning change to allow 395 people and then allow that business to exist in the way it is, has worked out just swimmingly. Well, it hasn't. From an environmental standpoint, I'm always picking up cigarette butts, paper cups, literally have to maintain the shoreline like it was my pool, because the litter drifts into the Sweetwater Springs subdivision. She's right, there's fishing line everywhere, in the tree canopy, floating in the water, all kinds of lures and stuff. They don't clean it up. Secondly, from an environmental standpoint, when I moved there, it's listed on the email that I sent you. You know, we had turkeys, peacocks, we even saw one monkey, orange monkey, ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life, okay? We had an eagle that nested, it was about 250 feet from my house. All kinds of birds, we have lots of bear, and they were good citizens for the most part. They're gone. They moved out when the original zoning change was given. So we've privatized profit over here, and we've socialized the filth. We've socialized the impact on the river.
Excuse me, sir. We need to be talking about the special event permit.
Yes,
Okay,
I'm getting there. So what I'm saying is, to start off with, the zoning change has not gone well. Secondly, we want to have a costume contest, do we? This is the reason why we have to change zoning. You know, I'm not aware that there's a shortage of costume parties around Halloween. Secondly, I'm not aware that there's a shortage of Christmas events around Christmas. I'm not aware that there's a shortage of events to celebrate spring break in the springtime in Florida. We're privatizing profit, and we're giving everybody else, we're socializing the risk, we're socializing the costs, we're socializing the lack of sleep by children who live 700 feet away from that venue, so that someone else can make some money based on a zoning change that really hasn't worked as well as people had hoped. Thank you.
Thank you.
No more speakers.
Okay, that was the end of our speaker forum. Is there anyone in the public like to speak to the board on these three items? Anyone in the audience before I close public input? Seeing none, we're closing public input. I'd like to ask the applicant, is there anything you'd like to rebut?
About the trash, and they're part of the river flows from them to us, so I don't know how our trash is getting back to them. And we do at least 15 cleanups a year through the island.
Okay. Thank you.
Any
Anything
questions?
Anything else you'd like to address? Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, now we'll turn it over to the board for questions and comments. Commissioner Zimbauer.
I have a question for staff. If we could have the individual with the most knowledge about the original development order and the history behind that. Talk about the development order that was put in place in 2019.
Just 1 second.
And I know Commissioner Constantine, as a district commissioner, had worked with the citizens group as well as this applicant in trying to arrive at the verbiage for that development order. Can you tell us, for the record, the development order and specifically what it says about special events?
Yes.
And can you give us your name for the record and your department?
Mary Robinson, Planning and Development Division.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward, I'll get to it. Okay, special events. The total number of special events per year is to be limited to 4 events and will not exceed a total of 60 days in a calendar year, as approved by the Board of County Commissioners. Additional food trucks will be permitted during special events, as approved by the Board of County Commissioners.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner?
That's specific to...
And there's nothing else in there?
Oh, there's a lot of information.
I'm talking about regarding special events.
No, sir.
Okay. Just wanted to make that clear on the record. Thank you.
Commissioner Zimbauer, anything else?
No, I'm fine, Chairman.
Any other questions from the board? Commissioner Herr.
First of all, I think the development order for the record was 2018. I think that's what you're referencing.
Yes, ma'am, but I think it might have been recorded in 19.
Okay, it was November. And then I think there's also a
No, it was recorded in 18.
Yep. Amended and restated final master plan developers commitment agreement that also references capacity, I think, is where the special events piece comes in. And that references capacity of the property will be 395 persons, including employees, unless specifically addressed otherwise by a special event permit.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is not in the development order, it's in the developer's agreement. And so I think that's, the last time we talked about this, the second document didn't come to light, but that's where there's confusion around the idea that 395 is a hard and fast number, when the owner of the property thinks 395 is not a hard and fast number. Fair statement?
Well, a special event permit does allow them the ability to ask for the exceptions to both recorded documents. As the same with the amplified sound.
Commissioner?
No, good.
Commissioner Lockhart, then Commissioner Zimbauer.
The special event permit, the deviation from the developer's commitment agreement or the development order through the special event permit is for more than just the number of people, correct? As you stated, it's the amplification of sound, it's the extended hours.
Yes.
Okay. Hearkening back to one of the last times we had this discussion, there was a significant amount of conversation around noise, and there was going to be a noise study, a sound study. What were the results of that?
The results of that the applicant did hire an acoustical engineer, and the cost was very prohibitive to their budget. Therefore, they canceled the special event. At that time, it was the Gallery Cerro, and it was in July, around the 4th of July.
So, in an attempt to be somewhat consistent, I don't think the concerns around sound and noise amplification have changed, and that was one of the main things that I know this board expressed was we've got to get a handle on what is an acceptable noise level so that the sheriff's office does have the ability to come in and say, this is too loud. And so we haven't moved the needle on that in my mind. The exceptions that are being requested for the extension of hours and the extension of the larger number of people and all of that, in my mind, the noise is the one thing that we were going to address that was going to help us in making these decisions moving forward. And since we don't have that, I'm sort of stuck back in June or whenever it was that we had that last conversation without new information. So that's...
Thank you, Commissioner Lockhart. Commissioner Zimbauer?
Yeah, I just want to clear this up again because it's been talked about, and I'm not sure we've got a straight answer on. So I'll try to make this as easy as possible. The DO allows them to ask for a special permit, correct?
Yes.
But anybody can come in and ask for a special use permit, correct?
Yes.
I could come in and say, hey, I'm going to have my daughter's wedding, and I want to go to 3 in the morning, and I want, Led Zeppelin to show up and play, music. I can come ask this body to do that, correct?
Yes, if you have more than 300 people in attendance.
Right, okay. So the whole purpose, for the public's, help us understand what the sole purpose is of the use permit, special exception use permit.
The sole purpose is to address the things like hours, noise, timeframes, numbers of people, what kind of event it was. It's routed to several staff members. For instance, the fire department takes a close look at it. They have to do an inspection prior to it opening.
So,
all those kinds of things happen.
Sure, thank you for that. So in the development order or the agreement that was part and parcel of this whole discussion when this transpired in 18 and registered in 19, was there any language that says a special use permit can only be limited to 395 people?
No, sir.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
I'd like to ask the county attorney a question, if I may, before I continue. Mr. Applegate, so from what I understand, if you do have a special event permit, you can go beyond what the county noise ordinance is that correct?
Under the provision of the Land Development Code and in the noise ordinance, under 165-51G, special events are exempt from the noise ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Constantine, to speak?
With all due respect, Mary, if I know that you are in charge of special event permits, but I did want, since there was a lot of questions here, I wanted to get the person that helped when we were working together, and I see Mary Hamels just walked in. Kathy Hamels just walked in. Yeah, I know. Kathy, could you come up here, please? And again, I know that we've had, as Commissioner Lockhart said, we talked about this back in June and ad nauseum, and I know that the folks that live in the area, and I know that Mary Weinog, everyone is tired of hearing this. But the fact of the matter is that we got everybody together. We sat down. We came up with an agreement that there was a handshake agreement, and then, as sometimes happens, Mr. Applegate, lawyers got involved. And then all of a sudden, we didn't have an agreement anymore, and everybody was running around telling everybody else that they were terrible people, including myself. But in the end, the final agreement, DO, that came down, and there wasn't any zoning change. There's been a talk of zoning change. There wasn't any zoning change. It was a development order redo, if you will. Pretty much what was agreed to with the handshake agreement in my office back in Altamont Springs came to be almost 6 months later in a development order. So, Kathy, there's been a question here on this special exceptions. And in the special exceptions, there was questions of size of event, noise, and time. Those were the three major issues that could be discussed, as well as the fact that we limited the amount of special events to 4 and a limited amount of 60 days. Okay? And included in that deal was what somebody mentioned about the cushions, which we put into that, as well as I might tell somebody that we've been working with Orange County and Commissioner Moore and the state, and the Seminole County has been part and parcel of that change and shift of the entrance of Wekiva Springs Park. So I just wanted everybody to know it wasn't just Orange County. We've been doing that and have given many exceptions and allowance to make it better. But is that not correct, that those were the things that we would have to discuss on each of these special exceptions?
Correct. The special events is pertaining to them going beyond what is allowed in the development order. And we did limit them more restrictive than what the code allows in reducing it from 90 days to 60 days and also limiting the amount of special events that they could have.
Yes. All of which, as you said, before they had more opportunities. And in discussing these requests with Ms. Weinog, she many times references prior to the DO, and I understand that, but I'm dealing with where we have the DO right now. And I'm also understand that there are varying degrees of opinion on this board, as was the last time, which became a 3-2 vote, I believe. So it's kind of like we're looking at, the wisdom of Solomon and trying to find a way to cut through the various concerns of both the property owner as well as the property owners that live in adjacent to it. So, Kathy, stay close, because we've got 3 different ones, even though we're trying to do them all at once. But I think that
there could be 3 separate motions.
Yeah. And then that's what I'm saying. I think we're going to be looking at, since I am the district commissioner, looking at 3 different motions here. But stay close, please, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm going to ask somebody else something, but if you two have a question, Kathy, we'll go right ahead.
Commissioner? Lockwood?
Yeah, Kathy, was there anything related to a noise level in the development order?
We did have where they were going to have noise monitoring on the site, and that was something that we did in agreement with the sheriff's office, that Wekiva Island. We also had where they redirected the sound going toward the river and not toward the residents. So there was a lot of discussion about noise, which hence we also restricted the hours of operation and when they could have outdoor amplification of sound.
So the noise work that was done involving the sheriff, did that produce a certain decibel level? Did we, I know we got into talking about bass, and decibels don't deal with bass and feeling the ground vibrate, but can you talk more about what actually was done?
With my there is certain limitations that they have with the monitoring, but it is on the decibels. Thanks, Rebecca. This is what the DO says is it deemed a nuisance when it exceeds 5 decibels over that background decibel level of more than 5 consecutive minutes. Background level shall be normal nature sounds such as locust frogs as determined by Seminole County Sheriff's Office. The Seminole County Sheriff's Office will be responsible for sound measuring and enforcing any sound nuisance complaints.
So from my perspective, and I understand that special events mean that the noise ordinance does not apply to special events. I got that part. But if the base expectation for this piece of property is crickets and natural noises, owls hooting, whatever, then Led Zeppelin might be excessive. So I thought when we had this discussion last time, we were going to kind of try and pick something that felt above 5, because we understand it's a special event and there's going to be amplification, but not up to whatever you want. So I'm just wondering how we can get to the reasonableness factor without a noise study of some sort. Unless we were to just arbitrarily pick one and tell the sheriff's office, here's the number, and this is it, without a study.
So what are Seminole County Code of Ordinances? Rebecca has assisted me again. Thank you, Rebecca. For commercial, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 11 p.m., you're allowed 65 decibels. Between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m., you're allowed 60. So that's what our Seminole County Code of Ordinances standard is for commercial uses.
But this piece of property has a development order that deviates from that, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. So what normal commercial would be is up to 60, I think I heard.
Yeah, 65 and 60.
Okay. Absent a noise study, do we want to pick a rabbit out of the hat? Do we want to pick a number? I don't know.
So that gives you, a perimeter between the 5 and 65.
Led Zeppelin.
Thank you. Commissioner Zimbauer?
Well, I get back to the same question. So we'll keep the record clear. Are you indicating that the noise ordinance for commercial, 60, 65 decibels, that's including a special use permit?
No, that's just our Seminole County Code
That's
of Ordinances
standard,
standard.
every day, my business can't
Correct.
generate more than 60, 65 decibels. But if my business wants to have a grand opening event, I'm allowed to deviate that as long as I get a special use permit?
Now, that I would have to, is that this is the Seminole County Code of Ordinances. The special events is in the Seminole County Land Development Code. So can the special event under Land Development County Code,
It's going to be Kathy.
and I will defer to the county attorney.
I was going to suggest,
on
let's
that.
refer to the county attorney. He's the one with the law degree.
And first of all, for the record, I wasn't one of the attorneys.
No, you were not. You were not.
The Code of Ordinances for the noise, and Kathy and Rebecca are correct, and what I alluded to earlier, when you look at the Land Development Code and the noise ordinance in Chapter 165, special events are exempt from the noise ordinance. Now, if there's an agreement signed by the county and the landowner that even with the special event exemption, that noise is not going to exceed certain decimal amount, then there's an argument that they're in violation of their special event permit. And then I would argue that at that point, they could be found in violation of the Code of Ordinances on the noise ordinance.
So the question is, does an agreement like that exist?
For the special event, my understanding is that there is not a recommendation on the maximum amount of decibels as part of the special event. It is in the development order for their day-to-day operations, but the special event can exceed that.
Thank you. Commissioner Herr?
So
sorry.
I do, for me, it's all interconnected. The number of people drives noise, the number of people also drives traffic, two entirely different conversations related to the number of people driving two different things. I understand the pollution issue. I honestly don't know whether the river runs up or down in that area, but it's interesting that we have two different perspectives on that. So I will go back to the notion that if it's our responsibility to monitor these documents that we've put in place with exceptions that we've made for the property owner, I'm not 100% certain I understand why we thought the property owner should bear the expense of a noise study. And if we want to get good at this, then we probably need to figure out whether or not we want to step in and say, what is reasonable? I appreciate the reference to the commercial noise allowances in the community. However, this is in the middle of a neighborhood, and it's different. And I think the fact that this document exists, these two documents exist, would indicate that even the owner of the property appreciates the fact that this is different and has conceded to a 60-day limitation on noise. But I don't think this discussion ever ends until we know what's tolerable. And I heard very loud and clear that the sheriff is not enforcing it because they don't feel it's enforceable based on the current language. We need to fix that if we want to fix this. So I'd like to know how much the noise study was. Perhaps the owner of the property knows, and we need to determine whether or not we want to take that step.
Before I go to Commissioner Zimbaugh, Commissioner Constantine, you asked for the floor.
No,
I don't know
that
how
there's
much
a
it
question.
costs. My husband would have to tell you that. But I can tell you it's not 60 consecutive days because no permit allows that. And then we do have some noise language in our DO. And I'm willing to move the music for the one time they complain the most, which is for paint out. I'd have to figure out where to put them, but.
Your email from last year from your husband.
Oh, $10,500.
Case closed.
Commissioner Constantine, before I go to Commissioner.
No, I mean, it's important that these questions are asked. I was going to go ask another person, but we had Kathy.
Commissioner Zimbaugh?
So Commissioner Constantine, as he stated, was very intimately involved in the negotiations early on. I was on the Planning and Zoning Board at the time, but it's my recollection, and please correct me if I'm incorrect, staff, Commissioner Constantine, this was all because of a non-conforming use, meaning this used to be a fish camp. And back when I was a very young man, there was a lot of things that went on at that place that were very loud, noisy, less than appropriate things taking place, maybe even some drug dealing and so forth like that. It was not a pleasant place to be at. And in fact, it was there long before homes actually existed in that area. And as that, there was never a zoning use for that because it existed before our comp plan and our future land use maps. So therefore, it was non-conforming. And we had to come up with a development order in order to at least get some lines drawn in the sand, recognizing that it had a use prior and what was going to be the agreeable use moving forward. And that's what the nexus of this DO tried to accomplish. Is that a fair analogy, Commissioner?
I'm sorry, but we have to go a little bit further back than that.
Okay.
When the current owners took over the property, it had been a fish camp in the past, which also included a restaurant, which also included other general activities. The Wekiva Parkway and Protection Act, as well as the Act of 1988, specified that they couldn't expand on the footprint of what they had previously. When they asked for the DO, or they asked for the change in certain situations on the property in 1918, 1917, 1918, which finally accumulated in the 18 and then 19 DO, we took the opportunity to, let's say, fortify the conditions, because at the time they had the ability to do more of a special events policy. They were asking for certain things, whether it be parking or the solar panels. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Right. Solar panels, and the second story.
The food trucks.
A food truck.
The food truck.
But the point is that in bringing the people together, there were certain conditions that Wekiva Island got, and there were certain conditions that the folks that live in that area got. So nobody won and nobody lost, and both sides were mad at me, which I felt that was a pretty good deal.
That's usually a win.
That, and that's what I'm saying. And in that development order, with Kathy's help, we tried to put it down all on paper, okay? Exactly as it would be agreed to. I will say that the 395 also, nobody has said this, was based on restroom facilities availability. So that was where they came with that, as well as I think it's 271 parking spaces, if I'm not correct. I am correct, I believe, on that, 271 parking spaces. So all of those things, again, it was a win-win, loss-loss for both sides.
Wasn't there also an agreement that if there was some concern or dissatisfaction, that there was a representative from the community that was supposed to reach out?
And that was the first question. There is
and talk.
A representative, which at this point I believe is Mary Sue from the island, and there is a representative, which is Jeff Stamer from the community. And when either side has a problem, so that they didn't come running up to us to, again, try to split the baby, they were supposed to talk, okay? Now, and what I'm going to tell you is, I don't think they're utilizing that as much as they should.
Well, that's
on
my
both
question.
sides.
Could we hear from Mr. Stamer and Mrs. Weinog on how that is happening, not happening? Are we not answering the phone? Are we not having a conversation? Are we ignoring each other? Can I hear from Mr. Stamer? Okay, Mr. Stamer,
you're welcome to come down because we're asking you a question.
I'm sorry.
I just want to understand.
To what end?
We can ask both of them. Before we go to Jeff, can we go to Mary Sue since she was up there? Sure. Mary Sue Weinog, how's that going? And then we'll go to Jeff.
I believe I've received 2 phone calls since 2018 from the neighbors.
Okay.
And I think Jeff Stamer may have been one, and I know probably the Thorntons were probably the other one.
Thank you. Now can we hear from Jeff just on this topic?
The last time specifically I called, I believe was about a year and a half ago.
Can you repeat that from the podium? So
I'm sorry. Last time I believe I called was about a year ago, maybe a year and a half. They had a special event going. I had neighbors calling my house saying, I can hear it inside my home. Can you get them to shut it down? So I called up Mary. I didn't get a response. I texted her again. I got a response 2.5 hours later, and she's a busy woman. And her response was, well, we'll turn off the music at 11, which was, they're closing that night anyway. And quite frankly, after that, it was pretty clear that we weren't making a whole lot of progress trying to take care of things that way. But I'm happy to continue trying. I'd much rather have a deputy who could get them to turn the music down if they choose not to.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
That's all I had.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Constantine.
Ms. Robinson, can you come up again, please? And Ms. Hamel, you might want to stay closer, just in case. Okay, so let's just take this first one. The first one is the Fall Fest. They are not asking for a change of time.
Correct.
Are they asking for anything when it comes to amplified sound? Change?
They're going to, oh, that's the wrong one, hang on, let me get to the right, yeah, that's the right one. It's two Saturdays, they're asking for 500 guests, and there will be amplified sound for the costume contest on the 29th, and then amplified sound throughout the day on November 12th for the Big Green Egg food demonstration.
And the amplified sound for both of them was going to be a
bullhorn or a microphone.
Or a microphone, but we're not talking about music, we're talking about announcements?
Yes. But I think they typically have some music in the general store.
No, that is typical, I know, and that's going towards the, but I'm saying that is allowed right now in the DO, I believe, that amplified sound. No, it is not at all. Amplified sound any day.
Not to exceed the 5 dBA.
Yeah, that's what I meant, not to exceed 5 decibels. Okay. But this one is not inside of that. This is, the request is for outside of the inside of the general store, correct?
Yes.
And the general store it goes towards the river. The other, like at the solar location goes all over. Is that not correct?
Halloween is in the under the solar array.
Correct.
And faces the river. And the Egg Fest is on this
Lawn?
deck in front of the garage doors facing the river as well. And that's during the day, like 9 to 4.
The
Halloween, we're done by 9, 10 o'clock.
But you're not asking for any time change
No.
on that either?
Those are Saturdays.
So there is not any, other than we're not asking for any additional decibels levels for those 2 days. Is that correct for the, I'm just trying to,
I know.
you know, I'm trying to get this straight. For
No,
that
I think
particular-
they are asking for amplified
yes.
sound for the microphone and the bullhorn.
Okay, but not above the 5, okay.
Yeah, no, so I think it's important, so while we were sitting here, I Googled, because no one else has brought it up, 60 decibels or 65 decibels is a normal conversation and laughter.
Right.
So that's 60 to 65, which we're saying is okay in our code for a commercial use. 5 decibels, frankly, I couldn't even find it on any chart that I Googled because it's basically nothing. It's like if there's no wind blowing and you're by yourself in the woods.
5 to 10 is breathing.
Okay, so there you go.
Frogs. I've got some examples here that I can give you for reference.
Well, I think I just did.
That's just the Spring Fest.
Leaves rustling, 30, average home noise is 40, normal conversation, like you said, is 60. A vacuum cleaner on the average is 75. Heavy traffic, window air conditioner, 80 to 89. Subway shouted conversation is 90 to 95. A boom box is 96 to 100. These are dBAs. Chainsaw or leaf blower, 106 to 115. Sports crowd, rock concert, loud symphony is 120 to 129. A gunshot is 140. Car race is 130.
For context.
I understand, I appreciate it.
County Commission meeting 287. I just want to point out that in the development order, there is no amplified sound allowed. It is only allowed in the special event request. So I think that's the question you keep asking. That's J and K of the development order. The sound measuring is related to the south property fence line contiguous to the Sweetwater Springs subdivision. And all of these numbers don't mean, from my perspective, 5 decibels on the property. It's, do they want 65 decibels in their living room?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And so,
The fence line.
so I'm not sure where we're heading with this, but the notion that this document says amplified sound is only a bullhorn. That's not what I'm seeing. It says amplified sound. So I can't imagine that you're having a Halloween contest and it's all quiet until somebody announces the winner. There's probably music in the background. So I think it's incumbent upon us to be clear about what we're signing off on, only to be fair, because the sheriff's got to enforce it after the fact. So I think it's music. Am I wrong?
There's no music. They're calling the person up and saying they're drag queen.
So for the duration of the Fall Fest, there's no music on a speaker?
Correct.
You heard it loud
And
and clear.
the permit specifies.
But it's on the stage facing the river. and
So yes, there
Yes,
is.
Not for Halloween, but for the Fall Fest.
Well, we were talking
the
about Fall
Egg
Fest first.
We're talking about Fall Fest.
Just for
right?
the Egg Fest day. That's from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Does that answer your question? So there is music 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and a bullhorn.
Okay, let's ask the district commissioner for the recommendation.
I'm not inclined to give any additional sound above the 5 decibels at the line, and that can be measured. So if it stays within that, and I guess I'm working on 29 right now. They're not asking for any time limit. They're asking for 500 people a day.
And Commissioner, if I may interrupt for a minute, the reason why I'm okay with 500, and I know I haven't weighed in yet, is because their parking requirement is 271, as you clearly stated. If you multiply that by 2 people in a car, that's 542. And so if they want to limit it to 500, they're basically reducing it, because if you do, that's 1.84 people in a car.
Just want to point out the development order includes staff.
I understand.
So the 271 you have to subtract out for the 30 or so cars that show up for staffing, right?
We don't have 30 employees that time of year.
For your special event.
No, we don't have 30 employees that time of year.
So how many employees do you have?
During the winter, we have about 24.
Okay.
But some of them are married and some of them drive together.
Okay.
There's still parking spots, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They use parking spots or no?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Commissioner Constantine?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think I see that there are people that would be happy to have, or allow them for the special events to have more, and there are people that would want to keep it at $395. For this event, these 2 events, there is no time change. I am inclined to keep the amplified sound at no more than 5 decibels at the property line, at the gate, or at the fence line. And because we are talking about a special event, and that's why they were allowed to have special events, I'd be willing to go to 450. That would be a motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
How about clarification on that?
Okay, clarification. No walk-ins, and no walk-ins, it's supposed to guarantee that,
I think we know which mic is the problem.
it's not,
No, it's not yours. I think it's at the podium.
and ensuring that we have enough facilities,
Okay, well, my clarification is, when you said
restroom facilities.
at the fence line, at the 5 decibels, are you saying the southern line?
I am saying
as
the
a-
fence line that is up against the southern border of the property.
As outlined and delineated in the DO.
Correct.
Okay.
So we're not asking for any additional sound. It's still at 5. And by the way, everyone, the river does flow north, so they are not going down south into the, just be specific on that.
I'll second that motion with that clarification.
So it's
Commissioner
5 decibels over the background. You're complying with K.
Correct, I'm not changing that.
Well, the motion did change it, so it's 5 decibels over background. Those are 2 different things. I'm just saying, the sheriff's going to struggle
My
with it.
question, I'll ask it again. as delineated in the development order.
Correct. Sorry.
I think that's how you answer, then I will second it.
Any other discussion to the motion? Seeing no other discussion, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion. Opposed, like sign? Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I need 5 minutes.
We'll take a 5-minute recess.
Thanks.
We'll pass lunch.
We'll go to the next two.
Yes, you can. We're just going to allow the county attorney to interject after we do 31. So, we do have a quorum, and I would like to reconvene the county commission meeting. Commissioner, we can have some silence in the auditorium. Staff? Excuse me. Okay, we're going to reconvene the meeting. Commissioner Constantine?
Thank you. So just for clarification, Ms. Robinson, we're on 30 now, and that is the spring paint out and spring fling. Now, that's for 28 consecutive days. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and talking about the 3 issues, what are they asking for in time?
Time, extended hours from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. for all days during the special event, and 500 guests daily.
And sound?
Amplified sound for the art auction under the solar array, and on March 2nd, and a band on March 5th that will perform on the deck of the classroom building.
Okay. And those have been agreed to in the past, as I recall, for the spring, as far as the art auction, which I believe is on a Wednesday, and the band, which would be on a Saturday. And, okay. My motion for that one, unless somebody wants to continue to talk about this, is that no changes in times for any of the days, the 450 on the Saturdays, and the auction day, and no additional amplified sound above the allowing of the band, but no additional amplified sound beyond the southern border of the property.
As delineated in the
As
development order.
delineated in the development order.
Okay, we have a
Second.
motion, a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Commissioner Lockhart?
I really appreciate that we're trying to protect the specific neighbors that are closest to the event venue. There's wildlife that also is disturbed by the sound, and was that an eye roll?
No,
Okay.
my eyes are
I caught you out of the corner of my eye, and I thought, surely you're not rolling your eyes at me.
not at you. No, I really wasn't. I wasn't.
Okay, cool. So the traffic of the people coming up and down Miami Springs also produces quite a bit of noise. And I know that the development order only addresses this southern fence line situation. But I just feel like if we're going to continue to increase the number of guests, to Commissioner Herr's point, it is all interrelated in terms of the regular noise, not just the amplified sound. We're increasing, every car, every motorcycle that goes down that road is increasing the noise for those neighbors, in addition to the amplified sound. And so I'm throwing that out there as a consideration.
And Commissioner, I respect what you're saying, and I do. And I agree with you. There is no science to this. This is trying to... The 395 we have stuck to, and as Mr. Stamer said, there has been so much less consternation between the neighbors and the property over the last few years. But there was a recognition that there would be special events, and that those special events would have potentially additional people. We have taken the extraordinary step of putting in the cushions, and in fact, the property owner, Wekiva Island, paid for those in respect for the citizens. I have put in the previous motion and this motion, if I did not say it, I said no walk-ins again, and assuming that when it's 450 that we have enough for the facilities, which I'm asking the development, which is a change from the development order. But I am not asking for any change in the sound. And I am also suggesting that we're talking about, Commissioner DeLauria is correct. They are allowed 271 cars at any particular time. There has to be a recognition that some of those cars are going to have more than one person. I'm looking at, now, we have said 2 days. Now I'm saying every Saturday and one day during the auction, so that's another 5 days. So now we're only talking about 7 days. We're going from $395 to $450. So we're going another 55, which I would assume would be about 20 to 30 additional cars. I think that that's reasonable.
I'm not asking for extra cars.
No, you're not. I'm sorry, Commissioner, Mr. Chairman. No, but there will be additional cars potentially, and that's what Commissioner Lockhart was suggesting. And I'm just addressing that. And that's why my motion was where it was.
Tell me your hours.
Commissioner Lockhart?
The hours have not changed. The Saturdays, the weekends, they still have until 11. The weekdays, they still have until 9.
Okay. So we're not going 8 to 11?
No,
Sunday
I
to
said
Thursday.
no time changes
Okay,
in my motion.
okay. I was confused.
So your motion is from basically, can you go through the time changes for me as well? So they're going to be allowed to do,
When you say no change from the request, no change from the
No
staff
change
recommendation?
no change from what they are allowed now and the staff recommendation, which is the same, which is the weekdays until 9, I believe, and the weekends until 11.
okay.
The weekdays during certain parts of the year, particularly this part, the weekdays, they have to close at 7. So we're recommending to give them an additional 2 hours.
Right.
Okay. Then I will agree with the staff recommendation. If that's okay with the second.
That's what I thought you were doing, so.
So I'm taking the recommendation of the staff that the weekdays 9, the weekdays until 11, no changes in the time, and 450, but only on auction night and the 4 Saturdays.
That's
4 Saturdays.
Or 3 Saturdays, whichever amount of Saturdays there are. I don't know how many Saturdays are in that time frame, but I think there's 4.
I can,
Seconder agrees.
Any other discussion to the motion?
How was sound addressed?
What was
That
that?
includes the no walk-ins and everything else.
And the sound still, you didn't change your motion on the development order as.
No, as the development.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, see no more discussion, all in favor of the motion, see what I'm saying, aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Now, on the third one, if we're there now, Mr.
We're there now.
Chairman, I'm going to ask that we postpone this without any cost to the applicant to come back. And the reason I'm saying that is because I think there has to be, in the development order, there was an understanding that the folks and Wekiva Island would work together. Clearly, they're not doing that as much as we would like to see. Mr. Stamer, Ms. Weinog are 2 wonderful and reasonable people. And I think that we need to get that done. And the last one is asking for a heck of a lot more, $750, $500. And I think that I want to see how these others work out with the $450 before I personally, before I approve the last one. But when it comes back, I don't want any additional cost to the applicant.
Commissioner, a question for the commissioner.
Yes, sir.
Are you, I want to make sure we're clear. Are you asking to wait until these other 2 are completed, and you want to talk to your constituents in your district to see if you can come to an understanding, or are you asking for that and to reopen the DO?
No, I'm not asking for any changes in the DO. I'm simply saying, and let me say, the second one is close to the first one. I think it's ending on the 12th of November, maybe until after the first one before they can come back and ask for the third one. Then the first one being the spring fling. I'd like to see how that works out. And then working with the applicant and the citizens to see if, how that worked out.
Okay.
But no cost to the applicant to come back.
Commissioner Herr?
I don't even know if that's a sustainable business model, that we don't allow you to plan for whatever you're going to do at Christmas until the middle of November.
Thank you. I was just telling the Mary that I have to set a schedule and I can't do it that late. We have to purchase
That doesn't work.
characters and things like
I
that.
don't see it working either.
Okay, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I said after the spring fling, which is March. I don't think we approved the one in Christmas until June last year. So I do think it's workable. There is nobody's saying that they can't have it. It's simply the numbers for 500 a day and 750 is things that I would like to sit there and see how the 450 works out for the spring fling before we move on to the next one.
Question for the
Commissioner
attorney.
Zimbauer.
I'm not so inclined to go along with that thought process for a number of reasons, and I want to ask a question of the county attorney. And maybe this helps the district commissioner solve this a different way. Let's say, hypothetically, that we make some kind of approval on item 31. And after the first or second event, we have enough complaints. Does this body have the right and ability to revoke that third special use permit? We do we not?
I think you do.
Okay. So I would be okay with that if the district commissioner would like to work with the parties between now and then, but look, the public's time is very important.
Yep.
They have families, they have businesses, they have children, they have other things that they want to do. Staff time's important, our time's important. That may be a better path if we go ahead and just have the discussion while everybody's here. And if after the first two, the district commissioner advises the board that, hey, this is not working, I'm okay with having a discussion of revoking that special use permit. What is the district commissioner's thought?
We could go that way. Mr. Chairman, we could go that way. I just really felt that I would like to see, we've never increased it from $3.95 since the DO, and I wanted to see how it worked. And it's always easy to once we've seen all the information, to then do it as opposed to come back and change it. If this commission is so inclined to want to approve it right now, my recommendation would be for the, and I'm not making this as a motion, I'm just throwing it out there, but I can make it a motion if that's reasonable, is, again, no changes on the sound, no changes on the time, with the exception of the boat parade. And that day, if it's not a weekend, I do not know. It does not specify, but I think it's on a Saturday.
It's Saturday, December 3rd.
Okay. And at that point, 450 for the boat parade and every Saturday during the Winter Wonderland.
Question.
Commissioner
For the district
Zimbauer.
commissioner. What about New Year's Eve?
New Year's Eve, I believe the staff recommended 12:30. I would accept 1 o'clock on New Year's Eve.
Okay. I'm just saying,
12:30 is fine with me too, but I just think that, it's New Year's Eve.
Commissioner Lockhart.
So the handy dandy comparison table, last year there was no New Year's Eve events. I've hosted a New Year's Eve party or two, and I've never been able to get everybody out of my house by 12:30.
Nope.
So I think maybe this isn't the right place for a New Year's Eve party. That's just, there wasn't one last year, they survived. I understand wanting to have one, you don't ask, you don't get. But, guys, this is in the middle of people's neighborhoods.
Commissioner Lockhart, can I say it is a Saturday night?
I don't care what night of the week it is.
Okay.
Everybody's got New Year's Day off. They want to be with their families. They don't necessarily want to hear what's going on because the reality is, we all know, we're going to say it's going to be 5 whatever decibels. The sheriff's going to go out there. It's going to be more than 5 decibels. It's New Year's Eve. It's going to be raucous. It's just what New Year's Eve is. And then there's going to be a brouhaha because the sheriff's not going to want to enforce it because it's going to be awkward because it's going to be New Year's Eve. And we're just going to, this is lather, rinse, repeat. I appreciate wanting to have this Winter Wonderland event over the course of these days, but I think the community, the neighborhood deserves to have New Year's Eve to themselves and their neighbors, to celebrate how they want, and to not have to have competition noise-wise, traffic-wise.
Is that neighborhood residential?
I'm not getting into a back and forth.
Because they like so many fireworks
at the
out. It's
podium.
Just one at a time. Commissioner Zimbauer.
Well, and I can appreciate, I think where Ms. Weinog is about to say, look, I mean, I've tolerated fireworks with horses for decades against my own desire, want, needs, and so forth, whether it's 4th of July, whether it's somebody's reveal party, whether it's somebody's New Year's Eve party. And the reality is, I don't think this community that sits here today with a straight face can tell us nobody in their community has a New Year's Eve party. They also can't sit here with a straight face and tell us that there is no fireworks in the proximity of their neighborhood, whether it comes from Wekiva Island, across the street, down the street, or wherever it might be. There's going to be fireworks, and we've tried to address fireworks otherwise. Personally, New Year's Eve, I'm pretty much in bed before New Year's Eve actually strikes the 12 o'clock bell, but other people, that's not the case. So with that, I would be willing to support the district commissioner's recommendation, if he's going to turn that to a motion, with the staff's timeline for New Year's Eve.
The only thing that I'd like to add, if I may, then I'm going to go to Lockhart, then her, then Constantine. They're not asking for fireworks.
No.
Right.
And just clarification, they're not asking for fireworks.
Understood.
We don't want to burn the state park down nor our business.
Just for clarification, we're not asking for fireworks, nor is we giving anyone else permission to use fireworks at this time. I just want to make sure we're aware of that. I just want to stay on topic. And I really think, from my perspective, the boat parade, I can see going more than 450 because I believe the boat parade could potentially be over earlier. So they're not spending the whole night there. So now we go to Commissioner Herr, then Constantine, then Lockhart.
So I'll work in reverse. I don't understand how 750 attendees doesn't drive a traffic pattern that's unsustainable in the neighborhood. I don't see it. So I support the district commissioner's increase to the number in general, but to 750 for a boat parade. My personal experience with boat parades is in a much more open area, thousands of people, and it drives traffic jams like I've never seen before. And this neighborhood is I don't see how it supports that. I also don't necessarily know that this is the right venue for a New Year's Eve party. I think they do tend to generally be a lot different than other events. This is family, et cetera. I don't know that going until midnight makes good sense. And when you try to force everybody out of there by 12:30, I think you're going to create a whole different traffic dynamic with DUI stops and everything else because people won't have had the time to wear it off before they get behind the wheel. I have no interest in doing that. So the New Year's Eve was a deal breaker for me, and the 750 is a deal breaker for me.
Lockhart, then Constantine.
So, yeah, just for clarification, I was not implying that the community does not have New Year's Eve parties and they don't set off fireworks and they don't celebrate. What I was saying is many of them may be hosting New Year's Eve parties of their own and competing with a commercial enterprise that would block up their street in order for their guests to get in and out. I don't think is fair because many of them may be hosting their own events, and I wanted to clarify. I wasn't implying that the neighborhood is saying that they're, teetotaling, non-firework lighting people.
Thank you, Commissioner Constantine.
And all the points that every one of you made is the reason why I wanted to postpone this and talk about it later after we did the first, at least the first one, because the first one is talking about 4 Saturdays or 3, whatever number there are at 450. And so, the citizens have shown me exactly the way they feel. I appreciate it. I don't think that Mr. Stamer or anybody would have any problem in, if they've got a problem with the previous one in letting me or anyone else know, because we have frequent conversations. I do want, if you, I hate to say force, but I would like to see more of a reason for the two sides to talk to one another. And that is the reason I originally said I do not want to bring up the Winter Wonderland right now, and I am going to say that again. So I'm going to move that we postpone that special events permit until later without prejudice to the applicant, and to be brought up at least after the spring fling is over.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion, a second. Discussion on the motion for
Discussion.
continuance. Commissioner Hur.
Would you also be willing to have the county do a sound study while in this gap, at our expense?
At the property line.
During an event to do a sound study, I think they can,
Simulated.
yeah.
I think that's a reasonable request.
Question for the district commissioner, for
Commissioner
Commissioner
Zimmer.
Hur. Are you saying the sheriff to go out and monitor, or are you
I am
saying
not.
us undertake a separate study?
I'm saying for us to undertake a separate study through an engineer that would give us recommendations to how to monitor the sound to make it acceptable for the neighborhood, acceptable for the business, and how to create a better marriage. We're up here guessing at this.
I will not support that from the aspect of, I do not believe that we should be favoring a test for a specific business. If it's good for one business, we should do it for any business in this community, and I don't think it's the place of the taxpayers to flip the tab for that.
I don't think so. I don't think this is any business in the community because of the historic nature of the land use, all the reasons you said while you were on P&Z, and the WARPA, all of those things came into play with this that's created a wildly different dynamic for this business than others.
So from my standpoint, I would support the motion for continuance, but I would not support the sound study.
And let's I'm going to tell you that I think it's reasonable if we put a limit on it,
I agree.
but I don't want it part of the original motion.
I agree with that, too.
So I'm not accepting that, but
So what is the motion you're making,
to
Commissioner?
postpone the approval of the special events permit for the Winter Wonderland.
Okay, so Commissioner, thank you, Commissioner. Just for clarification, Commissioner.
Before Ms.
Applegate.
Weinall,
Just saying, someone's,
before Ms. Weinall, can I have a question of the county attorney?
I'm curious what's going to constitute the change in numbers when they're still going to complain on the night of my gala. They always do every year historically.
I don't want to get, Ms. Weinau, I don't want to get back and forth with you. I think we've made the first two very clear, and I want to at least have the opportunity to talk to, see how the first one works out before we go to the next one. I just said it's without prejudice. You could come back, after and I made it specific, after the spring fling. We will have time to talk to them, and maybe they do, but we've also, maybe they will be upset at that. Maybe they won't. I'm not going to suggest, I'm not going to put that in. I can simply tell you, though, I know because he feels very comfortable in picking up the phone and calling me that I'm going to hear from Mr. Stamer, but I'm going to also ask him and others to pick up the phone as they're supposed to, especially Mr. Stamer, who is the person that was designated to talk to you if there's problems. So let's see how that works.
Commissioner Zimbarrow?
I have a question for the county attorney. Under our existing sound ordinance and my discussions with the sheriff's office, they now have trained individuals and the appropriate equipment, and that they are comfortable enforcing our noise ordinance. In the suggestion that we undertake a study at taxpayers' expense for a business, can we not rely upon the sheriff's office with their certified equipment and their certified individuals who are tasked to enforce the ordinance? Could we not have them or ask them to go out and monitor and give us a report?
sure, absolutely.
I mean, do you feel that would serve as a baseline?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, I want to remind...
So I would be okay with that.
Mr. Chairman, I want to remind everybody that that's not part of the motion. It's before us.
Understood.
Okay, so
I
let's talk
understand
about
that.
that after we get this
Sure.
motion.
I'm just answering the question.
No, understood.
All right, so we have a motion for continuance, non-prejudice. Any further discussion?
And I can say Winter Wonderland is much quieter than all the other events.
All in favor of the motion for continuance?
Was there a second?
There was a second.
It was me.
Oh.
All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2 for continuance. Any other motions on this topic?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we actually facilitate a sound study. Our first path would be to the sheriff's office to see if they would be willing to engage and provide a written report to include the recommendations and comments regarding the enforceability of their own recommendations.
Second.
I'm not done yet. If that does not work, then we would employ a commercial entity to do it in an amount not to exceed $15,000. As already indicated, it's doable for 10.5. Prices have changed in the last year.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Discussion? The only question that I would have, I will not be supporting it because I know that everyone's going to be asking for this.
Yeah, I can't support it either.
Any other discussion?
I will just say, because I do support, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Because I do support the motion, is that it is true, Commissioner, and you know, that other people would, if they have a problem, ask for this. This is a difference, in my opinion, because we have a specific DO for the property with specific numbers that are lower than the general numbers that we have for others, and that it's part of a a very, very important area with the springs, the folks that live there. It's been a continuous problem back and forth, and I think that once and for all, we need to do it. And I'm glad that we put in the thing about the sheriffs, and that Commissioner Zimbauer brought it up, because I think it's the right thing to go first, because they're the ones that are going to have to enforce it anyway.
Any other discussion to the motion? Before we make the motion, Mr. Abel, do you believe you have direction if this motion passes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Want to make sure. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2. Okay. That concludes item number 31. We're going to be going to the county attorney who wants to speak to us before we take our lunch break.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are 3 items that I need to talk about this morning. First is the opioid settlement. You all have a memo. Late Friday afternoon, our outside counsel sent us a settlement agreement that we would need to sign by February 9th, but I wanted to do it today so we don't run into any timing problems. Endo Health Solutions and Endo Pharmacies, one of the many defendants. They're going to give Florida $65 million. You have the memo. I would ask that for your approval for the chairman to sign Exhibit D to that settlement agreement that would allow us to participate. We estimate close to $600,000 will come our way eventually.
Direction for the board.
Second.
Motion by Zimbauer, second by her. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying
Aye.
Aye.
opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The second item is, as you know, Bob Slavin will be here Wednesday and Thursday. I reserved our conference room, the legal conference room, for the meetings, but obviously if you prefer to meet in your offices, that's fine. But you have the schedule of those meetings. And finally, as I informed each of you individually yesterday, in the River Cross Land, Chris Dorworth versus Seminole County case, the state court case, the circuit court judge in Volusia County, who was assigned a case, not only denied their summary judgment motion, but issued a declaratory judgment at the same time in favor of Seminole County, finding that the charter provision pertaining to the rural boundary is not only not vague, but clearly constitutional. The plaintiffs had 3 appellate lawyers zooming in on the hearing So I would expect an appeal, and I would ask that there would be no comment regarding the decision.
Okay. Are we clear? No comment. Great. All right. Before we take a recess.
No comment. We're practicing
Just for
over here.
clarification, I'd like to, even though we're taking a recess for lunch, I'd like to come back at 2 o'clock. Is there any objection for us coming back at 2 instead of 1:30?
No, sir.
Okay. We stand in recess to 2 o'clock.
Thank you.